But
All right, it's 7:30. Amy, can we call the roll and start this?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Mr. Fuller, Mr. DeLomo, Mr. Malta,
Here.
Mr. Manel, Mr. Good, Mr. Van Wagner, Mr. Worrell,
Here.
Mrs. Beal,
Here.
Mr. Mamie,
Here.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Here.
Chairman Shephaka.
Here.
what do we have?
Okay.
Six?
I won't ask anyone to stand, but I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to take just a moment of silence for the Israelis and the Palestinians that are wounded and have died in the last week, and it's a tragedy. Thank you. Mr. Fuller is here, I see. Mr. Fuller, unmute yourself, please.
We have 7.
Okay, we're good. Good to go. Chairman's statement, the notice requirements for the open public meeting law for this meeting have been satisfied. A copy has been sent to the Asbury Park Press, the Coaster, and filed with the office of the Township Clerk, July 27th, 2020. Board policy, no new cases will be started after 10 p.m. No new testimony taken after 10:30. In addition, the applicant will be limited to 45 minutes of testimony. All meetings will be videotaped and shown on Township of Ocean Community Cable Channel, Channel 22 on Verizon Fios, and Channel 77 on Cablevision. Resolutions and memorializations. Mark, they're all bulk. Can I offer them all at once? Mark? Okay.
Okay, repeat that. I was muted.
They're all bulk. Can I offer them all at once, please? Okay.
Yes, we were all the same vote last week.
Yes. Okay.
That's
Nina
fine.
and Robert Colt, block 40.06, lot 5, 1003 Brookside Avenue, Ocean, bulk variance approval. Abraham Mizraki, block 25.31, lot 3, 423 Redmond Avenue, Oakhurst, bulk variance approval. Geraldine Bamira, block 25, lot 42, 15 Shadow Lawn Drive, Wanamassa, bulk variance approval. Robert Chiancone, block 3, lot 29, 10 Arno Street, Oakhurst. Amy Chito, block 68, lot 15, 514 Corley's Avenue, Ocean. Phyllis Lockwood, block 138, lot 150, 133 Interlaken Avenue, Ocean. Someone please offer.
Worrell offers.
I need a second.
Second.
Who's second?
Malta.
Okay. Amy, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller, Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Mr. Worrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Chairman Shephaka.
Yes. Case is carried to June 17th, 2021 on Zoom. Do these cases need renoticing or anything, Mark?
No, we've been carrying them a month to month on the agenda. And,
Okay, so they're good. If they come next month, they don't have to renotice or okay, thank you. Morris Dweck, block 43, lot 1.2, 300 Parker Avenue, Deal Park. Kenneth Greenstein, block 22, lot 90, 204 West Morgan Avenue, Ocean. William Larkin, block 25.07, lot 12, 190 Belmar Avenue, Oakhurst. 2112 Highway 35 Associates LLC, block 3.01, lot 6, 7, 8. 2112 Highway 35 Ocean. Morris and Marcy Tibilli, block 17, lot 29, 225 Lewis Street, Ocean. Christopher Tallis, block 121, lot 5, 1406 Camp Avenue, Ocean. Seaview Corporate Park, block 149.01, lot 1.01, 26.03 Route 66, Ocean. Jesse Schomer, Block 12.06, Lot 4, 9 Burger Avenue, Ocean. Viland and Ashok Kale, Block 37.19, Lot 10, 19 Bentley Lane, Ocean. Sorry for butchering your name. Hillel School, Block 3403, Lots 2.201, 5.01, 5.02, and 6, 125 Deal Road, Ocean. David and Adele Kashi, Block 18, Lot 15, 213 Cedar Avenue, Ocean. Isaac Rolls, Block 25.26, Lot 8, 203 Cliffwood Avenue, Ocean. Which brings us to our first case, which is a continued case. It's Klein Cronum, Block 72, Lot 1, 486 Stafford Street, Ocean, Zone R5. This is an application to construct a one-story addition with covered rear porch, paver patio, Bilco door, and AC condenser, detached storage building, driveway trash enclosure, and fence. This dwelling is a pre-existing non-conforming in that it doesn't meet the front yard setbacks. And we're going to go to Amy, please mark the packet. Amy?
Yes, I will.
Okay. And I think we're going to go to Mr. Fitzgerald. Mr. Fitzgerald.
We had a technical review meeting between myself and Jim and the applicants, and they're professional, and they, as far as I'm concerned, did everything we wanted in terms of site layout and yard improvement layout. And so I'm perfectly happy with it from an engineering point of view.
Okay. Good. Jim.
Yes, I apologize. My secretary was complaining, so I had to put her out in the garage. I agree with Bill. They've made some minor changes, but did what the board wanted them to do. They moved the garage further back so you can get two cars in front without extending over the front property line. They've eliminated the trash storage enclosure in the front yard. They're making that a bike storage area. And they've made some minor changes to the fence locations, but otherwise the plan is the same, and I really don't have any concerns with it.
Okay, so who's going to testify here?
Yes, Mr. Chair, good evening. Richard Tilton, I'm the attorney for Michael Klein and Patricia Kronheim. This is a continuation of our hearing from April 15th.
Okay.
We did meet with Mr. Higgins and with Mr. Fitzgerald. Our architect, Mark Nemergut, is here this evening. He prepared revised plans for you. They're revised through May 6th, 2021. If I can, Mr. Nemergut was sworn at the last meeting. I don't know if he needs to be re-sworn.
He's still under oath.
Still under oath. So he made all the changes Mr. Higgins and Mr. Fitzgerald wanted?
Yes, that's.
Yes.
Mark
Okay,
is
we
here.
can wrap this up quick then. Let's go.
Mark, you could just briefly just tell them what I think we made improvements to the fence and to the fence layout and at the storage building. If you would just
Sure. As the professionals mentioned, we moved the storage building approximately 1 foot to the north, so that the setback is now 18'9" from the property line on Beechwood Ave. Adjacent to that, we removed the refuse and recycling enclosure from the plans, and in its place is a small area to park a bike and a scooter. There's no other structure associated with that. And then also to the east of the driveway, there was a concern about visibility, as one would be backing out of the driveway, and pedestrian visibility and such. So we moved the fence on the east side of that driveway. We moved it 2'8" towards the east, so we felt that that would provide enough sight distance for someone navigating that area. And then finally, the fence that runs along the western property line between the neighbor's house and our property, we clarified the extent of that fence and the height, and also adjusted it so that it's approximately a foot onto our property to provide clearance for the neighbor to maintain their structure, which is abnormally close to the property line.
Member
I
Gut,
believe that was
the,
all.
Your reservation?
Member Gut, the architectural improvements to the property, they're consistent with the neighbor.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit, Rich,
Oh,
but
I'm
yes, they
sorry,
are
can you-
consistent with,
With the neighborhood.
yes.
Okay,
I
and
believe they are, yes, yes.
and we've avoided like box construction for our addition. Is that right?
Yes, it's a one-story addition as we testified to previously, and the intent there was to provide first floor living for our client who would like to age in place on site. The development is for a master suite expansion, a kitchen expansion and such. And a two-story solution would not be the right thing to do for a number of reasons, one of which is aesthetics and scale of the structure as seen from the road, as well as just the sheer fact that they would have to go upstairs, and that's not something we wanted.
I like that aged gracefully. It's kind of like a roast beef. Is the siding and the roof line, everything gonna match?
Of course it will. Yes, it will. Yes.
There's also extensive landscaping and a rain garden proposed. Is that correct? It's all detailed on the second sheet of the.
Yeah, that was part of the original package, the landscaping plan. So you guys could see some of the proposed planting and hardscape that we're doing. We're making some dramatic improvements to the landscape.
And the property has 3 frontages, so all of those landscape improvements will be actually seen and enjoyed by the neighbors. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And the coverage, the lot coverage, it looks like we need a de minimis amount. It looks like it's 3.8% over what's permitted. Most of that's
Yes.
dictated by keeping the addition on the first floor. Is that right?
Yeah, that's really the main issue there. You know, we wanted to keep everybody on the first floor, and it's a modest addition, and then there's a modest storage building for things like bikes and surfboards and such. And there's no crawl space, or there's no basement or anything with this existing structure. It's over 100 years old, so that storage building is kind of pretty important.
I think that's good.
These weren't really the issues that we had, so
Right. And-
I think we've got a good handle on the issues.
Okay.
All right. So, Mr. Chair, that's our application, unless you need further testimony. The
No.
property owners are here.
Let's see if there's any questions from the board. Any questions from the board on this? No questions from the board. Any questions from the public on this application? I need a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion, we close the public hearing, Worrell.
I need a second.
Alta, second.
Amy, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Mr. Worrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie. Mr. Mamie.
Yes, sorry.
Great, no, that's okay. Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Chairman Shephaka,
Yes. Action on this? Someone please move.
I offer for a positive resolution. Alta, second.
Amy, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Mr. Worrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Chairman Shephaka.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you
Mr.
very
Chair.
much.
Thank you to Mr.
Thank you.
Higgins and Mr. Fitzgerald. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This brings us to case 2, Eddie and Sharon Dayan, block 14.01, lot 8, 251 Wilson Avenue, Ocean, Zone R4. This is an application to construct an in-ground pool, patio, 6-foot vinyl fence, and 5 and 6-foot hedge within the required front yard setback, Wilson Avenue and Garfield Avenue, as well as within the rear yard setback. Attorney for the applicant, Jeffrey Donner. Mr. Donner, are you here?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Good
Amy,
evening,
please mark the packet.
Okay.
Mr. Fitzgerald, you go first.
Mr. Chairman, we had a lot of discussions during the day of the last hearing and afterwards, and I think the applicant and his wife and his professionals decided to take the recommendation that we discussed and all very often offer is to move the fence back 15 feet, landscape the outside and reshape what's inside, and they did that. And as far as I'm concerned, I have no more engineering concern regarding the matter.
Thank
I
you.
have no problem with the board approving it.
Thank you. Mr. Higgins.
Basically, I'm just going to agree with Bill. I think that they did what we asked them to do, and it's consistent with the board's action in the past for similar sites. So I have no problem with what they're proposing.
Okay, Mr. Donner, how are you tonight?
I'm very well, especially after hearing Mr. Fitzgerald and Mr. Higgins.
Okay, so
Mr. Chairman, good evening.
good evening.
I concur that we made submissions to the board and to Mr. Higgins and to Mr. Fitzgerald. I believe we tried very hard to meet the concerns that were raised in the last meeting. I believe they've confirmed that they have been met and have been raised. And I think my role at this point is really to respond. We have our experts here tonight to respond to any questions the board may have. So there's nothing left for me to present, really.
I just have a question. Are we eliminating the hedge?
Yes,
Yeah, because it's crossed out. So it's just this, the
correct.
fence setback. Okay,
yes.
got it.
And also one minor thing, there is an accessory structure that violated a setback. They're relocating that to be conforming. So that variance is gone.
So pretty much they're doing exactly what Mr. Fitzgerald and Mr. Higgins wants. Mr. Donner, I'm going to ask the board if they have any questions first, okay?
Yes, sir.
Are there any questions from the board members here? Okay. Since that's satisfied from the board, I'm going to ask the public if they have any questions on this application. Since they don't, and I don't think your clients have to testify, I'm going to ask Amy to close the public hearing.
I will make one note, Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
before you do that.
Yes, sir.
We do have a planning expert, Barbara Allen from Beacon Planning. She did not testify last time because we didn't get to her. If the board desires planning testimony as to why the variances are justified as hardships here, I can present her briefly just to provide that information for the record.
Yeah, yes, briefly.
Okay, briefly,
Okay.
please.
Okay, I call Barbara Allen from Beacon Planning.
Miss Allen, were you sworn last month?
I was,
Okay, just raise your right
I don't
hand.
think we got you.
Do you swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
yes, I do.
And you've testified before this board many times, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So,
Simply tell us
Ms.
what's
Allen.
going on.
May I proceed?
briefly, as was discussed by the site engineer, the parcel is slightly undersized, but it's actually more the dimensions and the existing location of the home that presents a hardship, as there is not sufficient space anywhere on the lot to actually accommodate a pool safely. The applicant has taken the steps to provide adequate landscaping and set the fence back to how the township has previously found to be sufficient. And the application presents a reinvestment in an existing home and property in a manner that is consistent with similar properties in the neighborhood. As a whole, the application furthers the goals of the master plan, as the master plan seeks to keep neighborhoods in good condition and consistent, and the benefits of the application outweigh the negatives.
Ms. Allen, do you regard the circumstances that you just briefly referred to as sufficient factual basis for a hardship variance under NJSA 40:55D-70?
Yes.
See,
Okay. That's all I have with Ms. Allen.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the board for Ms. Allen? Any questions from the public? Thank you, Ms. Allen.
Thank you.
Amy, can you please close the public portion of the meeting? Amy?
I can't, I need someone to,
I move we close the public hearing.
Second, Worrell.
Amy, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Mr. Worrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Beal,
yes,
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Chairman Chepica.
Yes. Action on this, please?
Worrell offers for a positive resolution.
Malta second.
Amy, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Mr. Worrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Beal,
yes,
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Chairman Chepica.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, may I just make one inquiry on another matter very quickly? I want to make sure that we announce that the Arbor Manor project for block 149.01 lot 101 is being carried to the board meeting of June 17th. It was previously on the schedule for May 20th.
I don't have that, Mr. Kirk.
Corporate Park, it's on the agenda.
Oh, okay. Route 66. Okay, got it.
Okay, thank you, sir. I appreciate
Thank
that.
you. Okay, that brings us
And
to
thank you,
case
board
3.
members.
Thank you. That brings us to case 3, RC Realty South LLC, Block 3, Lot 3, 2135, 2133, Highway 35, Ocean C2. This is an application to construct a 101,651 square foot, 3-story building addition to an existing 2-story Lexus building with necessary variance. Attorney for the application evidently is Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Mr. Fitzgerald. Amy, please mark the packet. I always forget that.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I have a report dated May 20th, which I realize is today, but we had a technical review meeting between the board's professionals and the applicant's professionals some time ago. Basically, the applicant is updating his facility, his automotive sales and service facility, pretty much the way they all have done over the years. And it's been a constant moving target for all the dealerships in town in terms of trying to keep up with the industry. And he's replacing a whole lot of pavement and outdoor area with indoor area that suits his needs. Engineering wise, it's only a matter of relocating pipes and site improvements to accommodate the new building. It actually results in a very slight decrease in impervious cover. I have no engineering concern other than I noted that the site plan has a whole lot of zeros for illumination levels on the south side. And I realize the intent is to keep what's existing there and not change it. It was already approved, but zeros are not the answer. I think the best thing to do is just remove those illumination levels from that side of the plan and we're good to go.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzgerald. Mr. Higgins.
Yes, it's a conditional use. They deviate from some of the conditions. The front yard setback, the side yard setback, and the rear yard setback are all existing conditions. They're not being changed. Where they're changing conditions, the maximum building coverage, what's permitted is 27% of the buildable lot area, and they're going from 33.7% to 60.33% of buildable lot area. And the reason for that is, while it sounds like it's a huge deviation, a huge variance, but it's because so much of the site abuts the R1 zone and a large portion of the site is the required 50-foot buffer. So the buildable lot area is substantially smaller than the overall lot area. I really don't have a problem with the building coverage. particularly since what they're doing is basically covering existing paved area and moving the storage and the service area inside. There's also a variance for building height, 30 feet is permitted. What's being proposed is 33 feet. And what exists is 33 feet. What's being proposed is 40 feet. And the reason for that basically is that the ordinance for conditional uses for automotive sales and service hasn't caught up with the balance of the ordinance. In this zone, the permitted building height, I believe, is 45 feet for a use that's not an automotive service. So what they're proposing isn't inconsistent with what's permitted in the zone. And again, I just think it's the ordinance hasn't caught up to what was changed in the zone from 30 feet to 45 feet for the other uses. There are some signage variances necessary. And I think probably the best thing to do is for the applicant to go through and discuss what those variances are and what's being changed and what's remaining. I don't have a major problem with any of them as they're proposing them. They're typical of automotive dealerships, and automotive dealerships, the signage is somewhat unique. And again, it's not, I don't think there's a lot of sign clutter. There's no new signage on the proposed new structure. It's basically redoing the signage on the existing building.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Yes, I have several witnesses, and I'd like to start with Frank Siebert, who is the Senior Operations Officer for Katina, followed by Andy Comey, the engineer, and Anthony Garrett, the architect. And subsequent to that, we'll have the planner and hopefully a traffic guy who is currently testifying, both of them which are testifying before another board at this time. But I'd like to start with Mr. Siebert and have him explain to you why we're doing what we're doing, as well as, since we're moving some service from Cindy Lane over, what's happening in Cindy Lane too, so everybody feels comfortable as that there is a plan here to optimize all of the uses for the Katina. So, Frank, if you please introduce yourself and state your position with Katina. Frank?
Mr. Siebert, please take yourself off of mute.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Please raise your right hand.
I apologize. Right hand up.
Swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and address.
Frank Seibert, S-E-I-B-E-R-T. Mailing address 910 Route 1, Edison, New Jersey.
And your relation to this case?
I am the facilities manager for the Ray Katina Auto Group.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, you're on.
Thank you very much. Frank, would you sort of run through as to what we're trying to accomplish here between this property and the Cindy Lane property, as well as also the fact that we have a vacant building immediately adjacent to the Lexus dealership, and what's involved with that?
Very good. I'm sure everyone is aware of the business climate has changed or is constantly changing. At one time, it was advantageous to have service on a separate piece of property. That has changed. Also, the corporate Lexus idea has changed, and they are strongly requesting service, sales, all customer related items to be taken care of under one roof. So this is our solution. Our Cindy Lane facility will now become the receiver of our new cars coming off the car carriers. They will no longer come to Route 35. We will do the majority of our prep work there to clean the cars and have them ready for sale and display. As far as the existing building next door that was Maserati is presently vacant. We have some ideas, but we have not come up with a concrete plan for there as of yet. We do not presently have any intentions of opening a new retail site there. whatever we end up doing there would be definitely part of the Lexus business.
I mentioned this and I asked Frank to discuss it because actually, as Jim's report indicates, the property that's involved in this application includes that building. And so consequently, I thought it's valid for you to at least know that we're not making any changes to that building at this time. And one more thing also, Frank, you indicated that the new cars will be received and prepped and processed over there. Will Cindy Lane now also become a major storage area for the new cars that you have?
Yes, it will.
Okay, so in part of what we're doing tonight, there is also a variance involved with a technical variance involved with parking, but effectively the point being that a lot of our storage that is normally with the dealership itself will be at Cindy Lane, which is already a functioning building as such and a functioning property. So I just would ask you to keep that in mind as we talk through parking later on in the submission. I don't have anything else for Mr. Siebert at this time, unless the board has any questions of me.
Any questions from the board? Okay, let's move on.
All right, the next witness.
Excuse me, Henry.
Yes.
Anybody from the public want to ask questions of Mr. Siebert?
Okay, I was going to do that at the end, but that's okay. Are there anyone here from the public that would like to question Mr. Siebert? Okay, let's move on.
My next witness is Andy Comey. He's an engineer and is the one who submitted signed and submitted all the engineering plans. Andrew?
Oh,
There he is.
Mr. Comey, please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name and address in association with this case.
Andrew R. Comey, C-O-M-I. I'm with Kennedy Consulting Engineers, 211 Maple Avenue, Red Bank, New Jersey. We are the site engineers for this project.
Have you ever testified before this board before?
I believe I have for this actual site several years ago for the minor site plan.
And you're a professional engineer?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Andy, would you please provide the normal site plan type of testimony regarding what's going on in this site? Explain the size of the buildings, parking, the whole bit.
Absolutely. If I'm able to share a screen, I only have one exhibit, which I can introduce and use that to go through the site plan. Amy, can you enable me to share that?
Yes. Did you get it?
It works now, yes.
Okay, great.
Okay, everyone can see this, I hope.
Yep.
Okay, this is a colorized rendering of the submitted site plan. It's entitled Site Plan Rendering prepared by Kennedy Consulting Engineers, dated May 20th, 2021.
We want to offer this as A1?
Yes, please.
Okay. The full set of plans are in the package.
I'm not sure that Andy, this isn't exactly one of the sheets from the set, right? This has the information from the site plan that's been submitted, but it's got some peripheral information that's not on the site plan, or is it exact?
That's correct. This was submitted in advance of the meeting tonight, but it is not part of our 9-page site plan set. Correct. It does.
But all of your site improvements as shown on this exhibit are the same as what you show on your full plan set.
That's correct. Yes.
It probably should be marked then.
Just marked it.
Amy, can you please mark that?
Is it the site plan rendering that's in the packet?
No.
I did submit it, Amy, before the meeting. So it's the only site plan rendering that was submitted.
And the date is today's date?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Amy.
All right, Andrew, would you please
Okay.
take us around the site?
Sure. Looking at the exhibit, just to orient quickly, north is actually to the left-hand side of the page. The property fronts on Route 35 northbound and is surrounded on the other 3 sides by the park property. The property is actually 2 lots, lot 2.01 and lot 3, both of block 3, and they total approximately 5 acres. Lot 2.01 is the Lexus dealership, and lot 3, as Mr. Seibert mentioned, is currently vacant, was former Maserati dealership building. The site lies in the C2 zone, and the automotive sales and service is a approved conditional use in the zone. So the proposed project is a 2-story addition to the Lexus dealership. That's this darker orange color to the north of the existing Lexus building. The building is approximately 60,800 square feet, 2 stories, so it's approximately 30,000 square feet per floor. The first floor is primarily for service, while the second story is primarily for inventory parking storage to make up for some of the loss of the parking beneath the proposed building expansion. The building expansion is entirely within the existing inventory parking storage. The service entrance is at the rear of the building addition, near where it abuts the existing Lexus dealership. So customers will come in off of Route 35, travel counterclockwise around the back of the Lexus dealership and enter the service door. The service exit is out the front or the west of the building addition. In total, there will be 36 new service bays on the first floor of this building. And I'd like to point out that our cover page parking calculation incorrectly noted there was 42 service bays. There's 36. 42 is from a prior submission. So we'll get into the parking calculation in a moment. The building addition will be 40 feet high. As Mr. Higgins pointed out, this requires a variance. Conditional use allows for a maximum of 30 feet high. So that's one variance that's requested. The trash and fueling area that's currently located behind where the building addition is proposed will be relocated to the front of the building addition. You can see this lighter yellow concrete shaded area. That's where the trash enclosure and above ground fuel station will be moved to. It's really just for access. The building addition makes it awkward for trash pickup and other access. So the front makes more sense. A generator is actually proposed near where that trash enclosure is being moved from. That's at the rear of the proposed building addition, and that'll provide backup power for the Lexus dealership. The generator is going to be housed within a 10-foot by 25-foot enclosure. With respect to stormwater management, as Mr. Fitzgerald noted, there's actually a slight decrease in impervious coverage as a result of this building being placed on top of existing asphalt and some small landscape areas that are created as a result of this project. So there's a small decrease in impervious coverage. The existing stormwater detention system, which is located to the west or to the front of the building addition, will remain, and the stormwater will be rerouted around the proposed building addition to that underground detention system. So essentially the drainage patterns will remain the same as the existing conditions, with the exception of the piping being rerouted around the building. With respect to all parking stalls are 9 feet wide by 18 feet deep. The parking requirement, we calculate 378 parking spaces are required based on the retail portion. There's a second-story office portion of the Lexus dealership and the service bays. So 378 parking spaces are required, and we're proposing 229 spaces. That's 43 spaces in the new garage and 186 surface spaces will remain after the building addition. So variance relief is requested for the parking. Our traffic engineer, of course, can go into more detail on that justification, but as Mr. Mayor pointed out, much of the inventory parking will be at the Cindy Lane facility, so that'll help make up for some of that deficit in parking. There are 2 phases that are proposed. The first phase will be the building addition, utilities, and everything necessary for this building addition. The second phase is the parking replacement to the south in front of the Lexus dealership to match the proposed pavement around the new addition. So that would be that. So that's all that's proposed in phase 2. With respect signage, the existing pylon sign will remain. That was actually installed just a few years ago. Building signage at the front and sides of the Lexus dealership will be replaced. Those are detailed on the architect's plans. Essentially just the dealership text and logo signage will be replaced and upgraded to their Lexus new standards. There's one blade wall that's proposed in the southwest corner of the existing dealership where I'm highlighting with my cursor. The architect can go through the details of that structure, but that does have a Lexus logo sign on both the front and back of that wall. That's why I'm bringing that up as far as signage. I believe the only variance is an existing variance for the existing pylon sign, which was for square footage. It was 126.3 square feet versus a requirement of 60 square feet, but that variance was previously granted. With respect to lighting, Mr. Fitzgerald pointed out that our lighting plan noted a lot of zeros to the south in front of the dealership building. We will remove those. That he's exactly right. The intention is to keep the existing lighting the same. We were really only focusing on the proposed lighting around the building addition. And the proposal is to keep all of the lights at the perimeter of the site, and the few light poles that are within the proposed building addition will be removed and replaced with building mounted fixtures at even spacing above the overhead doors of the proposed building expansion. There will all be dark sky compliant LED and downward pointing fixtures. So we will get the lighting plan corrected and resubmitted. With respect to landscaping, we're proposing 43 trees and 84 shrubs in ground cover, and that's on both properties, both lot 3 and lot 2.01. And that's essentially just to replace the perimeter buffering that may have been lost over the years. So we're supplementing the existing perimeter buffer. I'll just go through the variances really quickly. The front setback is to remain. That's 53.4 feet versus 100-foot requirement. That's for the Lexus building. A rear setback for the Lexus building of 35.4 feet versus a requirement of 45 feet. A side setback, this is for the lot 3 Maserati building, of 19.87 feet versus a requirement of 50 feet. Those are existing nonconformities that are to remain. Our building height, as I noted, 40 feet versus the requirement of 30 feet.
Andrew, before you go beyond that, what is the reason for the 40 feet?
Well, I think our architect can probably explain that, but briefly, the 40-foot height is for the service. It's needed for the first floor service. But again, we'll let our architect go into the height in a little more detail. Building coverage, as Jim pointed out, we calculate 60.33 feet versus a requirement of 60.33% versus a requirement of 27%. Parking, as I noted, 229 spaces versus a requirement of 378. And essentially that's all for the variances. We have no issue complying with the board professionals review letters. And as far as outside agency permitting, there's Monmouth County. We have their letter of no interest. We have Freehold soil certification, and we are planning to seek a letter of no interest from NJDOT. Essentially, that's all the outside agency permits. So that's all I have, unless there's any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Comey. Any questions from the board for Mr. Comey?
Torrell, do you have any side view of what the architectural rendering is going to look of the second story? I mean, we're doing a down view. Any side views?
We have the architect has a rendering, so we'll get to that.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board members? Any questions from the public on this? Thank you, Mr. Comey. Mr. Mayor?
Yes, next will be Anthony Garrett, who is the architect.
Who is this?
Mr. Garrett.
Mr. Garrett, are you here?
I am
Mr. Garrett,
here.
please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
And state your name and address in relation to this case.
Anthony Garrett, Garrett. I'm the project architect. My business address is the Bill Garrett Group, 161 Main Street, Ridgefield Park, New Jersey, 07660.
Have you testified before this board before?
No, I have not.
Can you give us some of your credentials, please?
Absolutely. I'm a licensed architect in several states. I've been licensed in New Jersey since 1996. I hold licenses in New York, California, North Carolina, Ohio. I've testified before boards across the state, as far south as Egg Harbor. Probably the nearest community to Ocean Township would be Point Pleasant. And I've also several communities in Middlesex County, all the way up to Bergen.
That's good. That's good enough, Mr. Garrett.
Okay.
So please tell us where we're going here.
Okay, well, the first place I'd like to go is see if I could share my screen.
Amy?
Yes, I just have to find him first. Oh, there you are. There you go.
Okay, great. That we'll share the screen. And what we're proposing to do is to construct a two-story addition to the north side of the building, as Mr. Comey testified to. And the construction will be to house service bays with some additional parking upstairs. And I'm just trying to get my window open here. Let's see. Can we all see the renderings now?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So this is an exhibit. So from a housekeeping standpoint, we should probably mark this exhibit as A2. These renderings were sent down 48 hours in advance of the hearing in accordance with the directive of the state for virtual meetings. And really what we're looking at is some perspective views of the building. This view being the side facing Route 35. You can see the existing Lexus dealership over here. The proposed addition is in this area over here. We're matching the color schemes of the existing building. We are taller than the existing building. I think there was a question, why was the what was the reasoning behind that? And it really has to do with function. The ground floor is service bays. There are 32 service bays and 4 prep bays on the ground floor. You can see the doors along the that southwest facade here of the new building. I'm circling those 4 doors. Those are the prep bays. There's also an aluminum and glass entry door facing here, which is a drive aisle through the building. I will get to all this in the architectural plans, but I thought it would be better to start with the renderings. And then the next view, the east perspective, shows the rear of the building, series of aluminum and glass service doors. Again, another aluminum and glass entrance door. So vehicles would basically come out of these service bays, be delivered by the attendants into this tunnel through the building, where customers would pick up their cars after they've been serviced. or if the car was being prepped for someone, a new car delivery, the cars would be again either made available to the customers out at the front of the addition, or if necessary, could be driven through the building and again brought over to that service bay delivery during inclement weather. The floor to floor height from the ground floor to the second floor is 18 feet to accommodate service lifts, basically to lift vehicles up to perform the service underneath. The second floor, which currently is designed to have 45 vehicle inventory stalls, was designed with the future in mind because the structure is designed has been designed to support additional service bays up there. If anybody's familiar with the automotive industry, a lot of investment is made by the dealers into their service facilities because they are they're a key component to keeping the customers happy, and it is a profit center, to be perfectly frank with everyone. So the Catena Auto Group has decided to design that second floor so that in the future, if additional service bays are required, they can be housed upstairs on that second floor. And the roof height, or the floor to roof height, there is 22 feet. That accounts for the slope of the roof. We have a single slope on the roof from the front of the building, or the Route 35 side. The way my cursor is moving to the back, I exaggerated it a little bit, but all of our roof drainage pitches to the back of the building or the east side of the building, and then is conveyed down through leaders and connected underground into the stormwater management system that Mr. Comey testified to earlier. A couple other, this is a nice bird's eye view, kind of gives you the geometry of the existing dealership as well as the geometry of the proposed addition. And again, there's been a commitment by the Catena Auto Group to come up with a, rather than just blank walls of a parking garage, we've integrated curtain wall systems into the facade. We're using upgraded service doors, including high-speed aluminum and glass doors at the entrance tunnel through the building. Again, this is there's been a commitment to keep the Lexus experience. Corporate requires it. The dealership is providing it. I'm lucky enough that I've done a number of car dealerships, including Lexus dealerships, and I'm not just an architect for Lexus Autos. I'm a customer, and it is an experience. You go in and you're treated very nicely, and it's a pleasant experience, not only purchasing the car, but even bringing it in for service, you know, into one of these facilities, because these are all becoming the standard. I will refer one last time here, the Icon blade, which is a corporate requirement, has been added to the existing building over here. I will get to a sheet that shows the logo that was added and testify to the signage. I'd like to go to the architectural plans. And I would like to, again, I think I'm going to suggest we mark this exhibit in its entirety as, I guess we're up to A3. This was submitted to the board, again, 48 hours in advance. The original submission that was made a few months ago did not include these 4 additional service bays that were proposed, or prep bays that we're proposing now. So I am testifying to the addition of these 4 service bays and a slight reconfiguration to this rear stair and storage room over here. And these are coordinated with the site plans that Mr. Comey testified to. So there's no difference between what I'm proposing on this drawing or showing to you on this drawing and what was presented in this testimony and as part of the site plan package. But again, I can zoom in a little bit if it helps, it might, and save us some time. Let's see if I can just navigate around here a little bit. You know what, I'm gonna go one out, just make my life easier. Okay, so I'm encircling the proposed addition over here. This is the existing dealership over here. There's very little change to the interior of the existing dealership. And what we're proposing are a number of the 35 service bays in here, the 4 prep bays over here, the delivery tunnel over here, some additional vertical circulation elements, including an elevator, which will provide pedestrian access between the first and second floor. And we designed it in a way that we were able to interconnect to the second floor of the existing dealership. Currently, there's no barrier-free or handicapped accessibility to that second floor, but we added an intermediate stop on the elevator and are able to now provide access to that back office area that's housed up there right now. So again, that's a real benefit to part of this addition being put onto this building. There's some ancillary storage areas, part storage. There's a tire storage area. The building is fully sprinkled. It'll be the occupancy type will be a B occupancy for the customer service area, the customer lounge areas, which is an automobile dealership. The balance of the service areas and the vehicle inventory spaces on the second floor will be an S1 occupancy. And really no change to what's going on in the building right now. This is a blow-up plan of what I just showed you. Moving on, here's the overall second floor plan. I'm going to skip down to the blow-up plan here, which kind of shows some of the, you know what, I'm going to go back a sheet because I don't like that one. Here we go. Okay, so this is the second floor. We have a new egress stair over here. And then this is the vehicle parking area and potential future service areas. Again, another egress stair over here. There is a large ramp. It's 25 feet wide that can handle two-way traffic up and down from this parking area over here. Adequate aisleways for backup, and the entire second floor. Oops, got one more here.
Mr. Garrett, I'm not trying to rush you, but we're running out of time here and I'd like to finish this tonight.
Okay. The last thing I'll say is let's just get to the signage real fast. One more sheet. Okay. We'll minimize this a little bit. So the signage that is being proposed is enlarged here at the bottom of the sheet. It is the same size as the signage that's on the existing building. No variances are required. And lastly, this is the blade icon, which is attached to the existing building with a logo up there. And this blade icon is engaged with the south exterior wall and kind of integrates very well with the architecture. So with all that being said, I don't have too much more to add. When I took my cue, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Are there any questions from the public for Mr. Garrett? Mr. Mayor, we're running real short on time here.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I have one more witness and a second witness, which I have Mr. the planner, Keenan Hughes. Keenan, are you available?
I am, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, fine, that's good. I'd like to get his testimony in. John Ray, the traffic, John, you're there also now.
I am.
I
don't want to hold things up, though.
Well, Mr. Mayor, if you have two more people, I have about 5 minutes. Do you want to carry this?
I would, yeah, but you know what? I'd like to hear some more information. I don't know who's going to give it. There's a lot of sign variances requested.
Okay.
I think we need to go over what they're looking for.
Okay, so we have to call Mr. Garrett back for signs?
Well, I mean, yeah, and I think that Jim has a whole list of them, right, Jim? Jim, you're muted. Jim, unmute.
I'm unmuting, okay. There are sign variances necessary. I don't have any major concerns with them, but there are variances necessary.
Yes, I think we need to go over the signs and why they're of the size they are and why they're needed. Jim, did you have any? Okay.
Okay.
You're okay with the other variances?
We'll
hear from their planner.
Yeah.
Let's do the signs.
If we could, what I am concerned about is John Ray is the hardest person to get to a hearing. He's the traffic guy. And he finished another hearing tonight, so he could be here on this. I would like to get him in and get the traffic part done. I will bring back at the next time the planner as well as the architect again. And between them, they'll go through all the signage things.
Okay, because I mean, we need specific testimony on specific variances, which
No, I appreciate that.
the board might
What I'm
grant, but
saying
just,
is
it's kind of a big project to do in 45 minutes.
Oh,
well, if you gave me the 5 minutes, I think I'll do the traffic testimony, because I don't want to miss him again and we keep on, losing him for meetings.
Up to the chairman.
I'm going to give Mr. Ray 5 minutes because I know him and he's been testified and can move things along. So Mr. Ray, raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing. Right hand. That's
Raise both.
okay. Swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please state your name in relation and address in relationship with this case.
Sure. John Ray, REA, a principal with McDonough and Ray Associates, 1431 Lakewood Road, Manasquan, New Jersey.
And you have testified before this board many times, correct?
I have.
Okay, Mr. Ray.
Very simply, what we did a traffic impact study for the changes. As has been testified to, the service facility will be moved from Cindy Lane over to the Route 35 facility. So we counted the peak hour driveway movements at the Route 35 driveways, which are existing. We also went to the Cindy Lane service facility and counted the peak hour driveway movements at that location. We transferred those movements over to the Route 35 driveways with a finding that exiting movements to Route 35 will operate at level of service B as in boy during the morning peak hour and C as in Charlie during the afternoon peak hour. So the levels of service will remain acceptable with respect to the additional traffic that will be transferred over to Route 35. With respect to the additional amount of traffic that will be generated due to the service facility, we're looking at approximately 60 peak hour traffic movements onto and off the facility, which we counted at Cindy Lane, which will be moved over to Route 35. And well, that basically summarizes it. I know we don't have a lot of time, but I think the traffic is pretty simple and straightforward in this case.
What about on-site traffic flow, Joe?
Excuse me, Bill?
What about on-site traffic flow?
Well, Mr. Comey has testified to that, and the site driveways from and to Route 35 remain the same. The building addition has been designed to accommodate the inbound traffic, which is at the southerly driveway, which will proceed in a counterclockwise direction around to the back of the property and then into the service facility. So that has all been taken into consideration with respect to the architecture and the design of the site improvements.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Ray.
Thank you.
Any questions from the board for Mr. Ray? Any questions from the public for Mr. Ray? Mr. Mayor, I hate to do this to you, but since we have your planner, then we're probably going to bring Mr. Garrett back again to go over some sign variances. I have to carry this to the meeting.
Mr. Chair, could we extend the time? Mr. Katina and company have been waiting, probably a year between all the reiterations. They've met with multiple TRMs. I believe that this started at 7:52. Okay, at this application. I believe that Mr. Mayor could, if he got on his jogging shoes, get through this in the next 12 minutes if he gave it his best effort.
Do you think you can do that, Mr. Mayor?
I would appreciate that. I think we should do it through the planner because I think he'll answer some of the signage one. And if there are any left, we can then go back to Mr. Garrett to handle that.
Okay, and your planner is, sir?
It's Keenan Hughes. Keenan?
Good evening.
Mr. Hughes, please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and address in relationship to this case.
I'm Keenan Hughes, the planner for the applicant. 33-41 Newark Street, Hoboken, New Jersey.
Have you testified before this board before?
I have.
I don't remember you, but I've been here a long time. Can you just give me a quick?
Sure. I'm
Quick
a
resume.
licensed planner in the state. I'm a principal of Phillips Price, a planning firm based in Hoboken, and I represent municipalities and appear as an expert throughout the state on planning and zoning matters.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Keenan, would you please go through as quickly as you can, go through the variances that we have and justifications.
Yeah, so auto sales and service are permitted as a conditional use within the C2 zone. We're seeking 2 deviations from the conditional use standards for building height and building coverage, and then the bulk variances for signs as well as the number of parking spaces on site. So for a conditional use variance, the focus of the board is on whether the site remains appropriate for the use despite the failure to conform to all of the requirements that pertain to the conditional use. So in this case, with the deviation on building height and the building coverage, which exceeds the requirement, does the site remain appropriate for the use? I'll start by addressing the height variance. So as you heard from Mr. Garrett, the need for this variance really relates to the functionality of the building, in that the clear heights needed to accommodate service facilities both within the first and potentially within the second stories results in a building height of 40 feet. The benefit from my perspective is having these operations consolidated in a 2-story structure is better than a more sprawling 1-story building, or perhaps even having additional surface parking either on or off site. The site can accommodate this additional height first and foremost because, as Mr. Higgins pointed out, 45 feet is actually what's permitted for all other permitted uses within the C2 zone. So this is a structure that's not out of context with what's envisioned for this particular corridor. This building is set back approximately 175 feet from the rear, from the property. And the surrounding land use context here is not sensitive in that you got a gas station located to the north, and then otherwise it's simply open space. So there's no potential for substantial impacts to the surrounding land uses. In terms of the building coverage, from a planning viewpoint, and I think Mr. Higgins has also pointed this out, when you talk about building coverage, the intent of that is really to regulate the intensity of the use, perhaps visual impacts, as well as stormwater runoff. And in terms of the intensity use, this is not a major increase in activity on the site. These additional operations will be completely enclosed, again, which is better than having parking and other operations occurring outside. So that mitigates some of the potential for visual impacts. And in addition, there's no surrounding land uses that would be impacted from this particular facility. And then finally, in terms of stormwater runoff, there's no increase in impervious coverage. In fact, there's a slight decrease in impervious coverage. And as Mr. Comey pointed out, this application will actually result in an enhanced buffer surrounding the property. So those are all benefits and reasons why those deviations can be accommodated on site, and that the site still remains appropriate for the auto sales and service use.
Keenan, I just want to jump in. There's a question outstanding regarding signage and whether there are any signage variances. Are you aware of any additional signage variances other than the fact that many of the signs on the building may be previously existing nonconformities?
Well, for the most part, most of the signage is being retained. What's being added here are essentially 5 Lexus logo signs, each of which are 24 square feet. But all of the other signage is being retained from the existing site. So referring back to Mr. Garrett's elevations, it was simply the Lexus logos which are being added. They're relatively small and they're customary for automobile dealerships.
Okay.
Hey, just one clarification. There is a variance from the ordinance requirement for projecting signs, and I forgot what the architect called that one sign that's actually integrated with the architecture of the building, but it is a sign and it is a projecting sign. So I think a variance is necessary there.
You mean
as I said, I think it's integrated with the architecture of the building. I don't think it's a problem in terms of aesthetics or anything else. So I don't have a real problem with it.
You mean the one that was on the blade?
Yeah, the blade, that's
I
right.
agree.
That's correct.
That's an architectural element, and the signage on that particular element is only 24 square feet. It's just that small logo sign.
Mr. Chair? I believe the plan report is in, and I think hopefully we've solved the signage questions.
Well, I'd just like to go through Jim's report and see if we have everything, okay?
Sure.
Okay, so Jim, the applicant, number one, needs a D3 variance, right?
That's D3, that's right, for deviations
Yeah,
from condition.
And the two deviations are the, pardon me, the lot coverage and the height of the building. And I got the testimony on that.
There are other deviations that are not changed.
Right, but they still, we have to renew their, I
Yes,
guess.
yes. Yeah, just, that would be the safe way.
We would renew that the used cars are displayed in the front yard, and we'll renew the signs as limited by the prior grant, because we limited the signs in numbers and colors and everything.
Yes,
That would be basically all of the D3.
yes.
And then they go to the other variances that are, the bulk variances were also granted last time, I believe, right? The front yard setbacks and all that stuff. They're pre-existing. Front yard, side yard, and rear yard are pre-existing.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
We would renew those, and that they're existing buildings. I don't have any problem with that.
For the front, side, and rear yard.
Yeah, I have those. Okay, then we go. I have to write the resolutions. That's right. I need to make sure. Okay. So then we got the signage variances that you start on page 4 of your report. Jim.
That's correct. That's
so you're okay with this existing signs, just changing the facades of them or the contents of them, but they're all going to be the same size. Projecting sign is a variance. That was a bulk variance. We just talked about that, right?
Yes, yes.
The number of freestanding signs. What are we doing with that? Let's see. Ordinance permits 1 freestanding sign per site. They currently have 2 approved. We're going to just leave that, right?
What? Yes.
The plan eliminates the previously approved variance for 2. So we're getting rid of the other one on the Maserati site.
Well, it's not there now, and the question is whether they want to maintain that or whether that's going to come back with a former future application. It's been removed from the site. It's removed from the plans. It isn't approved. It's approved. So it's not like it's a pre-existing non-conforming thing. It's something that's been approved by variance. So they're entitled to maintain it, but if they want to maintain it, they have to show it on the plans.
I think we should probably put it back in again.
That's the existing Maserati sign?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So you're gonna put that back on the plans?
You'll put that back on the plan, yeah.
Yeah.
Put on plans, okay. And then the freestanding sign height, we also have previously approved that height, right?
That's correct.
So we're gonna renew that for the Lexus sign. Is the Maserati sign or the blank sign that's gonna be on that side of the height, or what do we? You're gonna put it back the way it was. I don't know what it was.
Yeah, they'll have to confirm what it was and put it back with the detail.
Right.
Okay, on that one, okay. Number of facade signs, here's where we're putting up some more.
What? Okay, well, there's.
Plan proposed a total of 8 facade signs.
There is a question as to the area of the freestanding sign.
I beg your pardon.
Plans are incorrect. They say it's 126.3 square feet, and they received approval for 225 square feet.
Does anybody know how big the sign is?
I think they need to submit the detail.
We'll do that. Why don't we do that? Yeah.
Okay, that's that. Okay, but we don't need a variance?
It's been
Well,
previously.
as long as it's less than 225 square feet, we're okay, right?
Yes, that's correct.
So it's got to be less than 225 feet.
Yeah.
Number of facade signs, you're proposing 8 facade signs. These are the logos.
Yes.
We have 3 already. Now we're adding 5 more.
But let's see. No, there's 8 being proposed, and the approved has a total of 8 facade signs also. And what the question I had is the size of these signs, whether they're the same size or not.
I believe that's indicated on the plans now that they do. They are the same size.
Same size.
Same size? Okay, that's the representation. I didn't see it on the plans. It doesn't mean it's not there.
I think on the upgraded it was shown.
Okay.
And then the facade sign area, do we meet that requirement? 6 signs proposed in the building, these include. I can't add it up that fast. We need a variance for that, the facade signs?
Now, it looks like it's less than 150 square feet. And that's 150 is the standard.
So they're okay with, they don't need a. The ordinance limits the area of facade signs to 150, and this is the accumulated area of the proposed multiple facade signs exceeds 150. You tell me it exceeds it.
Yeah, it's been a while since I did this report, so I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay, gentlemen, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Isn't it the board going to vote on what's been presented, and you gentlemen could continue this conversation before memorialization? Because this would be caught under any and all other variances as needed, correct?
But we just want to know.
Yeah.
Does anybody know how
Yeah,
many?
the total here, if you look at my report, this total sign area, if only the area of the logos is considered, the total sign area would be 196.07 square feet, which is what I think should be considered. They're permitted 150 square feet, so yes, it's.
So they need a variance for that, and based upon the added size of the building, these signs are necessary for identification and for general.
Yeah.
Planner, tell me why they're necessary.
What? Quite frankly, I think.
Not you.
Okay.
Their planner. What do we need all these signs for?
As I indicated, the additional signs are simply logo signs for
Well, why do you
the
need
brand.
Why do you need
which
so
are
many
integral
logos?
to the branding of the overall dealership facility and to make the dealership more visible to the traveling public, to visitors along Route 35. None of the signs are being mounted on the new proposed addition. It's really integral to the sort of customer experience at the front portion of the building.
Okay. All right. And let me just see his last page. Ron, I'm almost done. Then we have parking. Nobody addressed that.
Okay, I will address that. I don't think a parking variance is necessary. I don't think there's any standard in the ordinance that governs the amount of parking spaces for this type of facility. There's a standard for basically gasoline service stations, automotive service stations, but not for automotive sales and service, because everyone is different. The amount of inventory varies constantly, and you really can't come up with a reasonable standard. So that was deliberately left out of the ordinance.
Okay, so we don't require parking variance in the number of parking spaces.
That's my opinion, yes.
That they're supplying are satisfactory for this use.
Yeah.
Okay, I can work with that.
Okay.
I have no more questions.
Mr. Mayor?
That is our total case. And we request that action be taken tonight.
Mr. Chairman, you're muted. Mr. Shephaka, you're muted. Thank you.
Not anymore.
Okay.
Henry, you can open it to the public or the board.
I didn't open up questions for the board yet.
I apologize.
So does the board have any questions for Mr. Hughes, the planner?
Chairman, I just have one question.
Sure.
I'm not even sure, Mr. Hughes, if you could answer this. All the service bays at the new location, will there be ultimately the plan to have a net increase of jobs in the service area at this location compared to where there was currently being done?
I would have to defer to the operations expert, Mr. Stubbard, on that.
Mr. Fuller, if I may, remember that what we're really doing is moving the service department effectively from Cindy Lane over to this location. So clearly those people who were working over there are going to come over. So there would not be more people necessarily, but also not less people.
Okay, so that same level is already happening over there, you're saying?
What will happen over at Cindy, they're going to be doing the prepping type of job as such, which doesn't require as intensive, mechanical use as such, as well as a storage area. It will become the main new car storage area. So that's what's actually happening there. I don't know if there are more bays here versus the other utility as such. Maybe the engineer can advise us on that, or Mr. Siebert. But there should not be any significant change in employees.
Any other questions from the board? Are there any questions from the public for Mr. Hughes, the planner? Need a motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion, we close the public hearing, Worrell.
Altus second.
Amy, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Mr. Worrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Chairman Shephaka.
Yes. Okay, before we go forward, Mr. Steinberg, there's a D variance first, correct?
Right, yeah, this is a D3. This is a little different than, as long as the proposed changes in use where they didn't meet the ordinance requirements of the conditional standards, as long as the property can accommodate them, it's a little less of a burden of proof. And I think the applicant has made it here, so we need an approval of the D3 for the two new variances, which is height and coverage, and renewal of the prior D3 variances.
I need a motion for the D3 variance.
All for a motion, Worrell.
Altus second.
Amy, please call the roll. Amy? Amy?
Mr. Fuller,
There we are.
sorry. Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Mr. Worrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Chairman Shephaka.
Yes. Okay, now there are bulk variances.
Yeah, well,
Mr.
there's a renewal of the prior bulk variances, which are named in the report. It's the different sign variances that are required. And I think that's it. Just the sign, they'll really have some sign variances.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. Yeah, just a bunch of sign variances and the renewal of the prior bulk variances that are.
Someone please offer that.
We're all offer for the bulk variance for the signs in the previous.
Altus second.
Amy, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Mr. Worrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Chairman Shephaka.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Well, no, you need the site. They want to approve the site plan too.
Oh, wait, we have to move the site plan. Wait, sorry.
And the
So I
site
need
plan is going to be amended to show the Maserati sign. And it's going to also amend it for lighting as existing on the non-building building, the existing building. I don't remember anything else we had to change. We had to change something else on the site plan.
I don't think so.
Okay, just the sign detail on the Maserati as existing and the lighting plan.
Okay. Also, the sign detail for the existing Lexus sign.
If you would just say, whatever, revise the documents and site plan to the satisfaction of the board's professionals. I think I had that in my letter.
Got it. Okay.
And this is preliminary and final, so correct?
Yes, preliminary and final.
Okay, need action on the site plan?
We're all offers on the site plan.
Altus second.
Amy, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Mr. Worrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Chairman Shepherd.
Yes. That's it, right, Mr. Steinberg?
Yeah.
Good. Let's do another one before we take a little break.
Thank you very much for your consideration.
Bill, do you want me to send you the proposed resolutions or to Peter?
Yeah, that's fine with me. I'm happy to do it. Sure.
Not Bill. I'm talking about Bill Mayer.
Mark,
I'll make them short.
Send them to Peter because I'm not here that long.
Okay, you send them to Peter? Okay,
Yes.
got it.
Thank you. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to case number 4, David Mizrachi, block 12.05, lot 14, 269 Lawrence Avenue, Ocean.
Chairman Shepherd.
Yes.
They decided at the last minute to carry.
Okay. So when?
Till next month.
Did we announce it earlier?
No.
No, it wasn't on the agenda that way.
So,
Okay.
the
You can announce-
case number 4, David Mizrachi, block 12.05, lot 14, 269 Lawrence Avenue, Ocean, Zone R4 will be carried to the meeting of June 15th?
17th.
17th, sorry.
That's okay.
No further notification, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next case.
I would suggest, I think we have 3 more cases.
Yeah.
Okay, I believe that 6 and 7 are easy. And I think we need a little time for 5. Ron, you agree with me?
I agree. I would say, Mr. Chair, would you mind if we rearrange the new cases to put to move number 5 to the end of the meeting? Okay.
Well,
And
here's
listen to our
problem, Mr. Kirk.
Good.
At 6 and 7 are 45 minutes apiece. No new cases after 10. Okay, I'm not sitting here until midnight.
Yeah, but
Well, I need to take care of the residents first, and I believe that the number 5 will be a legal conversation.
Yeah.
But I past that, I don't know necessarily that it will be something that could be heard, but that will be between the lawyers to banter and for us to listen.
Well, and our planner. So I mean, let's look without going into detail. Number 6 is for a generator. That's a
right.
And I don't think that there's too much problems with number 7. I think both can be done within 20 minutes.
That's fine with me. Look, I'll stay. It doesn't matter. Let's go to 6 then.
Okay, Mr. Hensel, you here? Harold? Unmute yourself.
Unmute, please.
Harold Hensel.
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry.
Okay, so we're going to put you last, you know the reason, so we can have time on you.
Okay, you're going to take care of the civilian matters of the unrepresented folks first?
Yeah, I mean, there's only 2, and they're minor. So let's do number 6, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, you got it. Jane Steigler, block 1.10, lot 3, 6 Winterberry Court, Ocean, Zone R1 PA. This is an application to place a generator within required yard setback. Mr. Steinberg?
What?
Go back and forth.
I've been here a long time. What is, excuse me, please, Mr. Steinberg, what is zone R1 PA?
Planned Adult Community.
Oh, okay.
PAC.
Okay. I've never seen that before. All the time I've been here. Okay.
We've done it before.
Ms. Steingler, are you here? Amy, can you mark this packet?
Yes.
Ms. Steingler? Hello?
Shall we go to the Ashatino application while Ms. Steinler tries to get on?
I don't know if she is on.
Yeah, I don't
That
see
may
his
be
name
the-
there.
I don't see her at all.
Neither do I, but I'd like to at least give her the opportunity to see. I mean,
Okay, I'm
Okay.
going to case 7. I'm going to case 7.
See, I told you they go fast.
Alan and Joy Ascentino. Is that how I pronounce? I'm sorry if I screwed that up. Block 138, lot 35, 1000 Roselle Avenue, Ocean Zone R4. This is an application to construct a 1-story addition and a covered front porch within a front yard setback on pre-existing non-conforming dwelling. Amy, please mark the packet.
Okay.
Mr. Fitzgerald,
And Mr. Chairman, I have a report dated May 18th. I have no engineering problem with the matter.
okay. Mr. Higgins,
Okay, I'll read it. It's a short report. The applicant's proposing to construct several 1-story additions, a covered front porch, a covered rear deck, and a paver patio. The site's in a regularly shaped corner lot with the intersection of Roselle Avenue and Franklin Avenues. It's 16,618 square feet in area and is occupied by a single-family residence and a garage. The house has a non-conforming front yard setback, 30 feet is required, 18.8 feet exists. The existing garage is non-conforming with regard to side and rear yard setback, but is not impacted by the application. The proposed covered front porch and a small portion of the proposed 1-story addition on the north side of the residence are located within the required 30-foot front yard setback. I have no significant concerns with the application. The proposed 1-story addition is simply an extension of the facade of the existing 2-story section of the house. And the proposed covered porch is an open porch that extends from the facade of the existing 1-story section of the house. The additions make sense, and I do not see any significant detriment.
thank you, Mr. Higgins. Mr. and Mrs. Ascentino, who's going to testify?
I will. My name is Joy.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Can you see my right hand? I can't tell if
I can see it.
I
Please.
certainly do. Yes, I do.
Okay, please state your name and address and your relationship to this case.
My name is Joy Ascentino. I live at 1000 Roselle Avenue, Ocean, New Jersey, 07712. And I am an applicant for I applied for the 1-story addition.
Okay, please tell us what you want to do.
What we want to do is we want to extend our existing structure. It's a non-conforming setback. We want to extend it east towards Franklin Avenue in order to have a master suite. We would like to create a master suite because our intention is to stay in Ocean when we retire. There's going to come a day where we're not going to be able to climb stairs. And we would like to just be able to live on one level because we have 4 bedrooms upstairs, then we would have to climb. So our goal is to not have to climb stairs. Is that enough?
So that's for safety, you don't want to climb stairs when you get older, correct?
Correct.
And the outside of the structure, will it match the structure that's already there?
It will extend and well, actually we have a hip roof, right?
Okay.
That's a hip roof, Al? We have a hip roof that is actually the non-conforming section that exists now. It will become conforming to the addition because we're going to slant the roof. What we have, yes, the facade. We're going to slant the facade.
The siding will be the same color?
Yeah, it's all going to be replaced.
Yeah, it will all be replaced.
The roof will be the same color?
Yes.
Okay.
We are going to renovate the existing structure as well. You know, in terms of matching the new addition to what we what the house we currently have.
That's good. Sounds very good. Any questions from the board? Seeing that there's no questions from the board, any questions from the public? Motion to close the public hearing?
Worrell makes a motion to close the public hearing.
Paul's a second.
Amy, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Mr. Worrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Chairman Shepherd.
Yes. Action.
I offer for a positive resolution, go forward with this project.
Malta second.
Amy, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Mr. Worrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Chairman Shepherd.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you for your time.
Did Miss Steigler,
I believe
here.
that Mr. Mime is their attorney. Is that correct?
It's Mern, but yes. that is correct.
Well, as long as you're here, okay, then we can move forward with your case.
Sounds good.
okay. This is block 1.10, lot 3. Winbury Court, Ocean Zone R1PA. This is an application to place a generator within a required yard setback. Amy, please mark the packet.
Okay,
Mr. Fitzgerald.
And Mr. Chairman, I have a report dated May 18th and I'll read it and I'll try to be fast.
Okay.
There's an application to keep a residential generator installed without benefit of permits and or electrical inspections. Requires a variance to be located within a residential side yard. The surrounding neighborhood is fully developed as an age-restricted detached single-family homes on relatively small, approximately 5,500 to 6,000 square foot lots, and has been for many years. Notwithstanding planning considerations upon the matter, I have several substantive concerns regarding the matter. The property is located within a community of approximately 348 residential units, which share a number of commonly owned amenities and is managed by a homeowners association. From an administrative perspective, it's impractical for the zoning board to handle this type of application on a lot-by-lot basis. It's much preferable that the HOA develop a community-wide plan for emergency generators and or any other amenities that are likely to be popular with the age group demographic of the community, obtain approval of the community, and then applied to a municipal land use board to seek approval. I'm not being callous or unempathetic, but there is little unique about senior citizens with medical issues that require special accommodations. I didn't put it in the rear, but I am one. Okay. There are procedures and processes for obtaining legitimate permits and approvals to meet such needs. In the instance of a true emergency, a temporary installation can be installed while laws are followed and required approvals and permits are obtained. I cannot support the location of the generator from an engineering perspective. Because of the closeness of the adjacent residence to the north, it's only about 11 to 18 feet. They're on a circle, so they flare outward away from each other, but the front next to the generator is the closest. The sound or noise of the generator will reflect or reverberate between the building walls. It's worth noting that the residence to the north has several windows facing the yard in which the generator is located. There are several hundred feet of wooded area to the rear of this residence. If a permit had been properly sought, it is highly likely that the generator would have been located to the rear of the building in the approximate middle of the lot. Some sound fencing would have been also been likely to be required to direct the sound to the maximum extent practical toward the wooded area. If the board believes this is a unique situation and elects to act positively upon the matter, it's my engineering recommendation that its approval be conditioned upon the generator being relocated as described above. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzgerald. Mr. Higgins.
Yeah, I'll just summarize. I don't disagree with a lot of what Bill says. Where I do have a concern is in basically holding people hostage while waiting for the board for Rolling Meadows to get together and come up with a policy when in fact there are medical emergencies or medical situations that require situations such as this. The key, I think, here is that the generator is in place, and the key issue, I think, is noise. And if the generator is in place and there's no noise issue, I don't have a real concern with this one situation, as long as the proper permits are provided for and the proper inspections are done. If that's, again, that's as long as there's no noise issue. If the generator being in place and functioning and there's a noise issue, then I do have a concern, and I agree with Bill, it should be moved to the back of the house.
Mr. Higgins, I have a question for you right off the top of my head. I live in a neighborhood in Ocean Township. I'm not an engineer or a planner. Many people in my neighborhood have generators, and I'm a couple of 100 feet away from generators, and I can hear them on their test modes, which sometimes go off at 11 o'clock at night. And if this generator is 11 foot away from the next house, I think that there has to be some type of noise cancellation or movement. Only my opinion, but I need some more testimony from my professionals, because I'm not getting this. I hear this from far away.
Okay, and what I'm saying is it's there. If it's going to be a problem and it's there, it's a problem. And I don't know how, I think it's up to the applicant to provide that kind of testimony. You know, what are the sound, what kind of sound is being emanated by this existing?
One of the problems that you have with this kind of equipment.
Studies done. I don't know.
One of the problems that you have with this kind of equipment is you can get the model and you can go to the manufacturer, and the manufacturer will give you the operating level, noise levels, decibel levels.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, for generators, they're typically measured at 23 feet away from the generator. So you look at it and say, it's 64 decibels. That's at 23 feet. The next house is not that far. This is not a straightforward, simple testimony thing, or look at the brochure. But the bigger problem I have, and I'm not against, like I said, I mean, I'm in a community like that, or on the way, where my solution was, I have a small portable generator. It's loud, but I just hooked it up with a cord. So it doesn't have to be permanently anywhere, and I can have it going as fast as any other generator. So there are other solutions besides this particular one. So it's important to hear if any of the neighbors have problems with it. And if the applicant's got professional testimony to.
All right. Why don't we hear from the applicant? Mr. Murray.
Good evening. Before we start with my client's testimony, I thought it'd be very important to point out that I think there is a misunderstanding here. This generator is not installed. It was taken out of the box. It's kind of sitting outside the house. There's been no installation, so there was no work done without permits. My client will testify about that, but I think that looking at Mr. Fitzgerald's report, it looked like he was trying to intimate that the generator was already installed. It was not.
Well, I looked at it. I thought it was installed too. It's sitting there on a pad. It looks like it was installed.
There's no way to tell.
Yeah, there's no way to tell.
I understand. So we have Mr. Steiger here. Mr. Steiger, are you the owner of the property at 6 Winterberry Court?
Excuse me, sir. Mr. Steiger, can you please raise your right hand? Swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Well,
Please state your name, address in relationship to this case.
Winston Steiger, 6 Winterberry Court, Ocean, New Jersey, homeowner.
Okay. Please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Steiger. You are the owner of the 6 Winterberry Court, or is your wife?
My wife.
Your wife owns the property, but you also live at 6 Winterberry Court.
Yes.
And why are you looking to install a generator?
Well, after the hurricane a couple of years ago, we were out of our power. I didn't have any health issues then, but since then I've had a pacemaker put in, and I have a monitor on my nightstand, which connects to my pacemaker, which sends signals to my cardiologist. So in case of prolonged power outage, it would be a problem for my medical.
Are there any other generators similar to this in your neighborhood?
Yes, my neighbor at 8 Winterberry Court has one directly across from where ours is currently sitting, which is about maybe 8-9 feet. And her generator goes off on a weekly basis. And yes, we can hear it, but the noise level is not a problem.
Your next door neighbor at 8 Winterberry Court has the same generator?
Yes, exactly the same, Generac, all works.
You know, I know there's some concern about the installation, the location of the generator. Why is it that the generator needed to be located this spot? Amy, can you let me share a screen? Or I may be able to share it anyway. It looks like host, it says host disabled participant screen sharing. Amy, can I share my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see.
You get it?
Now, let's take a look at this area. All right. So can everyone see what we're looking at? This is your house, Mr. Steiger?
Yes,
And are we looking at right now where the generator is?
that's correct.
Is there any other place that we could put the generator that would work for this particular setup?
According to our electrician, he went over the site plan with the Ocean Township officials, and that there is no other place to put it because of windows. There is a big deck in the back where you cannot put that. According to our installer, this is the only place that it could where they can install it.
So you can, are you indicating that you cannot put it close to windows?
No, there's dining room windows on the other side of the house.
Right where I'm pointing, right?
Yes, kitchen windows, dining room windows.
Okay, and is this is a picture of the generator?
Yes, it is.
And just to confirm, this is not hooked up or not installed?
It is not hooked up. No.
Okay, again, I'm going to stop screen sharing for a second. I'm sorry. Let's see. And is your electrician who's going to be doing the installation, is he present also to testify?
I don't know.
Mr. McKenna? I don't know if Mr. McKenna is also here. Okay. All right. I don't know if the board has any questions for my client before we have Mr. McKenna testify.
I'm going to defer to my professional, Mr. Fitzgerald, again, and ask him, Mr. Fitzgerald, do you think that the generator is 18 inches from the house? And I don't know how far from the other house. Does this work?
Well, I have no information, but to be honest with you, if I heard the applicant correct, he's concerned about placing it near his windows. And if you read my report, you'll see that there's windows on the house to the north on that same wall facing the yard where the generator is. So that was one of the concerns I had.
It's right there. It's full.
I absolutely can't buy the representation that there's nowhere else to put it. But we'll have to listen to what the electrician says. I'm not closed-minded about it. I would not recommend it there under any circumstance.
So, Mr. Mime, well, let's hear from Mr. McKenna, the electrician. Mr. McKenna, raise your right hand, please. Swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please state your name and address. In this case.
My name is Chris McKenna. The address 73 Reeds Road, Tinton Falls, New Jersey. I am the electrician installing the generator.
Okay, and well, Mr. Mime,
Okay, I'll just ask a couple questions. Mr. McKenna, have you testified before this board before?
I have not.
Okay, and what are your qualifications as an electrician?
I'm a licensed master electrician. I've been in business for the last 5 years. I've been in the trade for the last 15, and I've been installing generators for the last.
And have you installed generators like this before?
I have.
Okay, and how loud are these generators?
This particular generator is 65 decibels.
So if I'm correct, that's the speed level. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I'm sorry?
I couldn't hear you.
It is much quieter than a portable generator.
It's much quieter than a portable generator. Now, why is it that the generator needs to be located at the location that was chosen for this particular generator?
Well, I just want to address something before. It was said that Mr. Steiger did not want it by his windows. That's not the case. I can't be within 5 feet of a window due to the carbon monoxide levels that will be into the house. That's why there's no other place to put it. There is a generator on the north side directly across from where we were proposing to put ours.
Okay, so if you put it on the other side of the house, it would be too close to the windows and the carbon monoxide levels it would be too high?
Exactly. The generator's manufacturer specifications say that you cannot be within 5 feet of a window or any vent because of carbon monoxide leaking into the house.
So am I correct in assuming that this is the only possible location for this generator?
Yes, if you look at, I actually stopped by the owner's house this afternoon, so the setback all around will not allow it anywhere on the property. So on the opposite side of the house, there's also shrubbery, windows everywhere where we could possibly put it, which would put it 5 feet away from the house, which would be further into the setback that was not allowed.
Okay, and then the neighbor's generator at 8 Winterberry Court, did you install that one as well?
I did not.
All right, but do you know how far away that generator is from their house?
Well, again, Generac specification states that it has to be no closer than 18 inches. It looks to be approximately that.
Okay, so it's about, okay, also about 18 inches from the house?
That's what it looked like. Without measuring, I would say it's definitely 18 inches.
All right, I have no more questions.
I have a question for Mr. McKenna. Specifications say 65 dB, and I'm not an acoustic engineer, but 65 dB at how many feet away?
It is at 23 feet away.
Okay. So the next closest house is how many feet away?
Well, I would say it's, again, I didn't measure. I would say it's about 15 at the most, 10 to 15 feet away to their generator.
Mr. Fitzgerald,
I believe is a 17 kW.
Mr. Fitzgerald, I'm going to defer to you again because, again, I'm not an engineer. I can hear generators 200 feet away. Please tell me what makes this generator different.
Okay, well, I don't have any information. I mean, Mr. McKenna is saying that, I think if I heard him right, and I'm having a hard time hearing him, so I think he said that it's 65 decibels is what's reported?
Right.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Those measurements are typically taken 23 feet away from the unit. Okay.
That's what he stated.
Air conditioning units are rated decibel or for sound levels at about 3 meters or roughly 10 feet. And mechanical equipment like generators are rated at 7 meters or approximately 23 feet. So to me, it's very loud. There are no state standards in terms of noise or sound emissions on residential properties. However, this requires a variance. If it were commercial properties, after midnight, after 10 o'clock at night, the sound pressure or the sound decimal level at a residential property line cannot exceed 50 decibels. Okay, so this is quite loud compared to that standard if it's operating at night. That's why I'm suggesting that it be installed in the back. It looked to me like on the survey, there's enough room in the back somewhere to put it where it's closer to the woods and not to the neighbors. Whether the neighbor next door has one or not, that's another story, but I can tell you that it didn't come to this board.
The survey does not show the deck that's in the back of the house, which would prevent us from putting it back.
The survey is incorrect?
There's a large deck in the back of the house that prevents us from putting the generator there.
So basically, the survey is incomplete.
Well, the survey, in fairness, Jim, the survey, because we have a relaxed standard, the surveys, the as-built survey from when the house was originally a certificate of occupancy. So we could go to the building department and get a look at a permit survey that was done with the deck, and maybe we need to put this off a month. I don't know if you can hook this up temporarily, Mr. McKenna, so that if there is an emergency, I mean, nobody's trying to keep Mr. Steiner from being accommodated as he needs to be. I mean, that's not the issue here. The issue is how to do it in the 348 unit community without having 348 of these situations.
Unfortunately, there's no way to temporarily hook it up. It requires permanent gas piping even if the electric wasn't secured to the house, they're still drilling into the structure to bring the wiring to the main electrical panel. So there's unfortunately, there's no real way to temporarily hook it up.
I'm having a hard time with that because I have a portable generator and it's a Generac, and I have a
This is not
30-foot
a
cable
portable
that I can hook
generator.
it up with.
Yeah, Bill,
This
this
is
is
not a
not
portable
permanent,
generator.
or this is not temporary. This is a permanent generator.
Okay.
Whole
I
house.
understand, but it gets hooked up with the same wire.
No, it does not, sir.
I believe this gets hooked up to natural gas. Is that correct, Mr. McKenna?
Natural gas, and it's directly hardwired to the electrical panel. There's no cord, there's nothing to plug into it.
So this is not like one of those portable generators where you pour gasoline into it, right?
It's just,
No, sir.
I understand, believe me, I understand how it works.
Okay, as a lay board member, here's my problem. This is Rolling Meadows, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Steinberg and Mr. Kirk also, it's a planned community. I don't know about the person next door that has a generator. I know that we've been pretty liberal with generators as a whole in the past, but I don't know what, and I hate to do this, I don't know what the homeowners association states, and I don't know, and I'm uncomfortable if my professionals are telling me that there could be a noise problem and that there could be a different location. It's only my opinion. I don't know what anybody else on the board feels, but I think that we should at very least carry this and figure this out.
Okay, Mark and Henry, look, I think perhaps a letter from either myself or Mr. Steinberg, I believe Mr. Steinberg would be the better person. Understanding that more people want generators as time goes on. We all understand that the Jersey Central Power and Light, has not provided us historically with sustainable power. We can't be listening to 348 applications for generators in this planned community alone. So sending a legal, maybe even motion to each one of these homeowners associations that they have to come up with a generator plan would help us in the future. But I don't believe that it helps this resident in this timeline. And I'm supposed to be Switzerland in all applications. I just don't know necessarily if it's reasonable, if they cannot hook it up, to leave this particular resident or any resident in harm's way with regard to health. Perhaps the electrician has an idea to hook up a temporary generator there with a switch, okay, that you could do while we move this application to the next month. I just don't want to be, I just believe that we've gone this far. We need to do something for a resident and then take it on as a global issue.
Mr. Kirk, I'm not unsympathetic with you, and I think that you're right 100%. But at the same time, and each variance has always stood on its own. But I'm not in favor of just voting on this one and hoping that something else happens.
I'm not comfortable with that either. I mean, it's not hooked up now. Apparently the need is there for, the same need's been there for quite some time. I'm not sure why carry this. Or we prove it, possibly in another location. But I'm not prepared to vote favorably on this as it stands.
You are or are not?
Are not.
Or not, okay. Neither am I.
Can I just point out something? I don't think you're going to have a situation where you're going to have a lot of, be flooded with a lot of generator applications, because from what my clients are indicating to me, most of the people in the community in their immediate vicinity already have generators. So
Understood, Counselor, and that has nothing to do with your client's application at this time. The conversation I had with the board chair and with the attorney was a global issue, not specific to your application or your client's application.
But I have to say something else, that I just heard that there's lots of generators there. Every generator that we pretty much put in that needed a variance for something has come before this board since Sandy. I've listened to hundreds of generator cases. I think that we have an issue here, and we have to take care of the issue. Unfortunately, if there's a health problem, you get a small portable generator and you can use it in the meantime. That's only my opinion.
The only thing, the only issue with the portable generator, it has to be manually started. So Mr. Steiger would have to carry it out of his garage, fill it with gas, manually start it, and then plug it into his home. In his condition, he just cannot do that.
Okay, and then I'll ask the electrician because of the board's concerns. You're telling me that it's physically impossible to install this whole house generator on the rear end of the existing deck? You're telling me that's a physical impossibility?
Yes, sir, it is. It would put it out into the easement.
It's a physical impossibility?
Physical, financially, it's probably an impossibility.
Okay, no, we're not talking about, no. What I'm saying to you is the board has addressed concerns. I'm speaking because I'm a licensed construction official in the state of New Jersey. My question that I have to ask is, are you telling the board that it is a physical impossibility to install a whole house generator to the rear of the existing deck, regardless of the survey that we have? Okay, we can understand that it's a physical impossibility to run the electrical and the gas line to that location.
No, of course not. There's no impossibility.
Okay, so it is possible to accomplish all these things. Now we're having a conversation about location, correct?
Yes, anything's possible, for sure.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I just wanted to dispel any, of the.
I'm not, I've only heard from one other board member. I'd like to hear from another board member and what their feeling is.
Sure, I'll say something.
Yes, Mr. Mamie.
So my background is in electrical engineering, so I have some presence on this, I guess. I do know that Mr. McKenna is correct that citing the generator somewhere else may increase the cost because of increased wiring, and you know they may have to install an underground conduit with trenching, and that gets expensive. My question is, like, what model of generator they're using, and I know there are certain other manufacturers, like I know Cummins makes a Cummins Onan makes a quiet residential generator that's, I think, 10 dB quieter than the other manufacturers. That's a consideration. And 10 dB might not sound like a lot, but that's about half the perceived loudness of a comparable generator. Another possibility is a solar system with a battery backup option. And I know that solar energy is generally a little bit more expensive compared to a generator, but there are financial incentives, government incentives, and all that can bring that cost down significantly. And that's also more beneficial to the community. It doesn't produce any noise, emissions, or anything like that. So that's another possibility that might come out to be more of a win-win for everybody.
I think what we're trying to do is find a way to make, whether it's hooked up or not, I believe that the applicant has purchased the unit, correct? Is that correct, Mr. McKenna?
Yes. Yes.
So what we're trying to do is figure out how to make this particular unit work. And,
Correct.
you know,
Chair Henry,
I mean, my thinking is as follows. If we need to help the applicant, one way to do it would be to approve it in the rear tonight. And if he needs to get it installed quickly, do that. And if not, we can look at it over the next month, maybe. It's just a thought. I'm not sure if it can be done, Mark, but seems to me that it kind of helps somewhat.
Okay. Shawanda, did you have something?
yes, I just have, I guess, two questions. So one is, and I'm not clear if I heard it correctly. Is this for a medical emergency? Because I would hate to, I guess, hinder if medically it's needed. And then two, and I don't know if Mr. Higgins was mentioning this in jest, but he mentioned like a noise cancellation. I'm not too familiar with generators. Is that a possibility, I guess, with some add-on or a feature?
Yeah, I didn't talk about, somebody else talked about noise cancellation. I didn't.
I'm sorry, I cannot
Okay.
recall who mentioned that, but if they
Yeah.
can speak to that.
I don't know if there's any possible way to do that in such a small area. I don't think so.
The problem that I see with it is that it's between the two close walls. If it was out in an open field or something, or a large single-family lot, when I say large, even 30 or 40 feet to a sideline, but these are solid walls, and they reflect sound, and between two solid walls, you're going to get reverberation. And without some qualified testimony, it's pretty hard to sit and try to understand what it's going to sound like.
Chairman?
What is the appropriate setback that is required for a generator? If we had the room on the side, what would be the setback? My understanding was 5 feet.
I believe it's 5 feet.
So we're at 2.5, I believe. So if we, another 2.5 feet, we wouldn't even have to worry about the noise?
You don't have it. The sideline setback there, I think, is 5.81 feet.
That's what I mean. So we're at 2.5 feet now. So if we had that other 2.5 feet, this wouldn't even be an issue. And that sound would carry that much of a difference?
If you consider this a structure, I didn't get into that. I'm not the board planner, but I looked at it, the definition, and my thinking is that a generator is not a construction. It's manufactured and it's an installation. That's different than a construction. I have a question whether it's even a structure, but I don't think you can fit it. Then you're right across maybe more than 5 feet from the windows of the other home.
Yeah. For zoning
I installed one at,
just for zoning purposes, it's a structure. The zoning officer has determined it's a structure, and it's proposed at 1.5 feet from the property line, not 2.5.
okay, so we're still at 3 feet or 3.5 feet, and would the sound difference be, for an emergency like this, would the sound difference be that big of a difference for 3.5 feet?
So the sound, listen, again, I'm a layman. The sound difference at 3 feet or 5 feet, when a house is 100, the next house is 100 or 200 foot away, is a lot different than when the house is 10 foot away. Right?
But if we had that
I'm not that ignorant. If you got two.
No, I understand that, sir, but if we had that 5 feet and we were in that setback, even if the house was closer, we wouldn't even have to go through a variance, am I correct?
But
That's
the
correct.
issue is you don't have the 5 feet, and you need the
Correct.
variance. That's the issue. I think we're just going around in circles here. That's
I think it can be moved to the rear of the house. If it can be moved to the north, east. If we move to the east, I think, I'm doing this without the picture in front of me, he could get to 5 feet. So if that's,
Yeah.
it can be done.
I think that this would become a very, very expensive proposition to move it. You're talking about a different way the generator is going to get piped with the natural gas, and there's also windows on the other side of the house, and you can't have the generator underneath the windows. My client could talk. I think there was a question about whether this is a medical emergency, and my client did mention some information about his pacemaker. I don't know if I don't know if he really elaborated on the necessity of having the generator. If Mr. Steiger could talk real quickly about why he needs that generator.
Well, I do have a thing on my nightstand that monitors my pacemaker and sends the signals to the cardiologist office. About 2 weeks ago, the cardiologist called me and asked me if I was okay. I said, why? He said, well, there is something on your monitor that is irregular. Thank God it was nothing serious, but this is what the monitor does.
Oh, I guess Mr. Mechanic could talk about whether the generator could be moved. He said it's possible, but it just didn't sound like he was saying really an easy thing to do.
Well, without looking at the new deck on the survey, I think it's still gonna put us up past off the customer's property.
There is no other place to put it. It's because of the windows. But I agree with Mr. McKenna. If it was 5 feet back, which is only 3 feet more, what difference does it make in the sound level?
As I say, the sound level is measured at 23 feet from the unit. I mean, if you're closer, it may be louder. That's the industry standard.
What does an air conditioning compressor have?
I'm sorry.
What decibel level do air conditioners run at, the compressors outside?
They're all different, but I happen to be involved in an application for one of my clients. It's a little larger scale, but we're doing the same thing. And if I recall correctly, it's a commercial application in a residential type structure, scale structure. So we were looking at a large generator, but a residential scale HVAC unit. And I want to say it was about the same as Mr. McKenna mentioned for this. It's 65 decibels. However, air conditioning, the standard for measuring the sound emission is at 3 meters, about 10 feet approximately. The standard for measuring mechanical equipment like generators is at 23 feet, 7 meters.
I have a question. Other than during the emergency when there is no electricity, the only other time that the generator is used is for testing. Is that correct?
Well, you have to be exercised.
Yeah, every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks?
And I can set it every 2 weeks, and I can set it for any time during the
I was
day.
gonna say, can it be set for during the middle of the day as a condition? Or so that it's not at night or doesn't disturb the neighbors?
Typically, I set them for the beginning of the week or the middle of the week at 10 a.m. Just figure that's a safe bet of everybody.
Yeah, I mean,
being
so
awake and
we're
everything like
talking about noise, Bill, that only occurs, God forbid, in an emergency when he needs it, when there's no electricity, or the testing, and we can regulate the testing.
For 10 minutes.
I understand. I'm just trying to, I don't have a problem trying to help, but
How can you regulate the testing if there is not a noise ordinance in town until 10, that goes from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m.? Okay.
I can set the time where it starts.
I know it has a timer, but there's an ordinance in town and that has nothing to do with the timer. You could have that go off at 9 o'clock at night if you want. Okay. I'm sorry, but I'm still perplexed about how close this is to the second structure. And
the neighbors have
and maybe I'm the only other guy in Ocean Township that hears everybody's generator in my neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. Does he have a generator?
You know, maybe we could build into the resolution that the testing would have to be done during daytime hours.
Of course. My neighbors goes off every Monday at 12 o'clock.
For 10 minutes.
Yeah, 12 o'clock, noon.
I,
Mr. Chairman, I got a suggestion.
yes.
Being a mechanical licensed contractor, I've seen generators installed with an external muffler. You need to contact Generac and see if they sell an extended muffler that would silence the gas engine quiet. It's made for tight locations. We do it with large Caterpillar generators in commercial buildings. And I don't even know if they make it for Generac, but it would be an external muffler. That's your only choice. If you can't put it, if you're saying you put it in the back of the deck and the deck's off the property, then we got another problem. You know, how that deck got there, I'm not even going to talk about that right now. And how those other generators got in there, shame on that association for, you know, letting that happen.
Well, our association approved our replacement.
Well, they're in trouble, as far as I'm concerned.
Because they said there was no other place to put it.
Oh, by the way, I don't know if I can still share the screen, but I'm looking at my, I'm looking at right now that they do sell apparently an external muffler for the generator. So
Okay.
that's something that would help the board make a decision in our favor. I would certainly ask my client to get the muffler on his generator.
Ask Chris if he can put this on.
Yeah.
Karen, can anybody, any of our professionals confirm that there is a, you know, a generator right across from where their proposed location is?
Yes, I was there, and it is directly across.
Mr. Cat, I believe you. I would just want to hear it from one of our board professionals.
I did not notice it, but I wasn't looking for it either.
Yeah.
That's something I have to look into administratively with the construction department.
I really don't know where you want to go with this. If you want to take a vote and hope for the best, you hope for the best. If the vote comes out yes, it comes out yes. If it comes out no, then you don't get a generator. I think unfortunately, I'm not usually this perplexed about a case, but I'm in a planned community where other people have put in generators with evidently not coming to us, and we don't know if they're there legally or illegally, and I just don't know what to do. Mr. Steinberg, can you shed some light on this, please?
I think you got to call it. Somebody's got to call it to a vote and see where it's going. I think you can, as a condition, require the installation of a muffler. So Mr. Mern says it's available. And number one, and number two, you can, the testing has to be done during, daylight hours or something or other. The timer has to be set at whatever time is.
No.
Chairman, I'd be inclined to vote for a resolution, for approval with those conditions upon, confirmation that there is a generator right across the way. I'm with you on the noise level. I mean, I hear these in the neighborhood. I don't understand, generally how you could be putting these between houses that are, 15 feet apart. But in this situation with a muffler, I think I'd be willing to make an exception.
Well, I just saw a picture of a muffler. I didn't see any specifications on whether it made things sound lower the decibels. I just saw a picture of a muffler. I mean, if you guys want to vote, fine with me. I'm not in favor of this. I couldn't be.
Mr. Chairman, for what it's worth, I just went on Google Earth, and it appears there's an installation at the front corner of the house adjacent, the house to the north. I can't tell if it's a generator, obviously, at Google Earth, but if the representation is from the electrician that it is, I'm inclined to believe him. I mean,
okay. Okay. Any more questions from the board?
How about the public?
I didn't get to them yet.
Okay.
Are there any questions from the public? Anyone here from the public to be heard? Motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion, we close the public hearing, Worrell.
Second, Malta.
Amy, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Mr. Worrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Chairman Chepica,
No.
to close the.
Close the public hearing.
Just to close the public hearing.
Okay, yes.
Somebody want to move the application for a positive resolution with a muffler?
Worrell moves that the generator go forward with a muffler installed for this one-time medical special dispensation of the installation of this generator.
And testing be done during what? Morning hours after 10
Only,
a.m.?
only between 8 and 10 p.m. 8 a.m. to 10 p.m.
8
8,
a.m.?
8, no earlier than 8, and no later than 10.
Why do you want to go at 8 a.m.?
Well, I don't care, whatever you guys want, you know.
That's
How
it. You can't-
Ladies and gentlemen, if everyone's worried about enforcement, I would just suggest perhaps that it would be during business hours.
Right.
Okay.
So that we don't have an 8 a.m. or 10 p.m. police call to the property, you know?
Okay. Testing during daylight business hours.
Which is what?
9 a.m. to 5.
Just say 9 to 4.
9 to 5.
Okay.
Who moved that? Worrell. Did anybody
Worrell.
second it?
Worrell.
Seconds.
Fuller seconds. Amy?
Please call the roll, Amy.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
No.
Mr. Worrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Chairman Chepica,
No.
Got it. Okay, it passes.
Thank you very much for your help.
Now we got one-
We're gonna take 5 minutes.
Okay, and then we're gonna wait, Mr. Wright, I pushed him to the end because I thought the other stuff would be easier.
I
appreciate the efforts, Mr. Steinberg.
Before you go, I need us, and before everyone takes a break, I would need the board to make some kind of a recommendation this evening for Mark to write a letter to all planned communities, or perhaps a letter from Jim Higgins, because, you know, that they have to come up with a generator plan for each one of their individual planned communities that's approved by this board.
Yeah, I mean, we have approved site plans. They're not allowed to
Right.
put a shed up, are they?
No.
Right.
Not
But
coming
I'm
to us?
saying, but addressing generators so that no one on this board needs to be put in, or a resident needs to be put in this position again.
It's
Yeah.
too late. It's too late. We already voted on it.
No, Henry, I'm speaking moving forward.
But moving forward, there's other people with these generators. It's too late. If I live there, I'm gonna say, hey, there's 50
Yeah,
other
but-
guys there and I know that
Yeah, but-
I can do it.
I don't think there's 348 units in this community alone. Let's say there's 20. At least we're reducing it by 328 people.
Right, and then in order to, in other words, we need a plan and then we can incorporate that into their site plan and not have to come back each time.
Correct.
Yeah, I understand. Jim and I will work on that. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Are we taking 5 minutes?
Please.
And then we got Mr. Hensel, you're up. I thought it would be fast. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
5 minutes, right? Call the
Yes.
roll?
Could you call the roll again, please?
Sure. Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
Here.
Mr. Worrell,
Here.
Mrs. Beal,
Here.
Mr. Mamie,
Here.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Here.
Chairman Chepica,
Here. That brings us back to case number 5, Evan Wright. block 39.04, lot 7.02, 89 Cold Indian Springs Road, Ocean, New Jersey, zone R2. This is an application to construct a single-family dwelling along with an in-ground pool with variance for a change in grade, front yard setback for 8-foot wide the walkway, as well as maximum driveway width within the front yard. Turning for the applicant. Mr. Hensel.
Yes.
I'm
Good
sorry it took so long, Mr. Hensel, to get to you, but I appreciate you waiting.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. And no apologies necessary. We've been patiently watching, and I am impressed with the board's efficiency. Maybe not the last one, but all the rest of them you were rather efficient with. Yes, I should correct one thing on the agenda. There's a notation that we're seeking a front yard setback for an 8-foot wide walkway. That was eliminated in one of the revisions to the plan. So the variances that we seek are for the driveway width, as well as the requirement needing to put more fill in the property and raise the grade by more than 2 feet. Those are the 2 C variances that are being sought. But there's a little bit of an issue with it, and I've discussed it briefly with the board's counsel, and I don't know how much you want us to get into at this point.
Yeah, well,
please mark the packet.
Right, and I think we need to, Henry, I think we need to hear from Jim.
Okay.
The Kate Maloney, our zoning officer's been going back and forth on this, basically, as to whether or not this is a single family or a 2-family house. And she came out with a report yesterday, May 19th, right?
Yes.
Which now she says that it looks like to be a 2-family house. There may be a way to mitigate that. Jim, why don't you fill the board in?
Yeah, sure. I think really the question is how the ordinance reads and what's being proposed here. Let me just read you a couple sections of the ordinance. Section 2121, which is regulations applying to all residential zones. 2121B says there shall be no more than one principal residential building or dwelling unit erected or established on any one lot in a residential zone. And then it goes on to accept multifamily and townhouses and so on. But the point here is that it says there should be no more than one principal residential building or dwelling unit erected on or established on any one lot in any residential zone. Then you go to the ordinance to a definition of a dwelling unit. And a dwelling unit, and let's just see, is defined as a house, trailer, or other structure or a portion of any building or structure designed, arranged, or used for living quarters for one or more persons living as a single housekeeping unit with cooking and bathroom facilities. This is not including hotels and so on. And when you look at the design of the structure that the applicant's proposing, it's a residential structure. There is a 2-story section of that structure located where it has bedrooms, bathrooms, living area, and kitchen space. Then you have a garage situated and a hallway, and on the other side of the garage and hallway, there is a separate portion of the structure that also has a kitchen, bathroom, living area, and bedrooms, and that has separate access through the garage, and then access also through the hallway that runs between these 2 portions of the building. And it's clearly, and when I look at it, and it's a technical thing, but it's arranged or used as living quarters separately. There's 2 separate living quarters there, even though the intent of the applicant may to operate it as a single family unit. That's not the way the ordinance reads. The ordinance doesn't say the intent is that it be operated as a single family unit. It says that it's arranged as a dwelling unit. And you have a situation where this building is arranged with 2 separate dwelling units, even though they may want it to function as one single family unit, which is why the applicant's attorney has suggested a deed restriction. And the concern I have there is if it's a permitted use, you don't need a deed restriction. A deed restriction would be more appropriate if there were a variance, a use variance associated with it, and you wanted to control the use through the deed restriction. And I also, quite frankly, I don't want it to seem like I think this is a bad application. I actually think this is a really, really good application. I think there are compelling reasons for the granting of a use variance for this application. But I think when you look at the ordinance and the way the ordinance is written, I think it's two separate dwelling units, and the ordinance doesn't permit two separate dwelling units on a single lot.
Mr. Steinberg, may I address those
Yeah.
concerns?
I mean, that's the crux of the issue that we're having. What needs to be approved?
Yeah, and that is the question. Historically, I think as Mr. Steinberg, you're aware from our conversations, this application, the design of the structure was a creation that was done by actually the applicant's father, who was an architect. And that was done after a couple of meetings with the zoning officer to comply with the ordinance and provide that this would be a structure that met the requirements of the zoning ordinance itself. I look to the ordinance definition of family that I know Mr. Higgins may not have looked at, that speaks of the idea of one family living in the property, and that cites in there that a bona fide housekeeping unit, which is what we're talking about with a single family residence, shall mean a relationship between persons for maintaining a common household in a style generically characterized by stability, permanency, and functionality, which in all respects and to all outward appearances presents a picture very much akin to that of a traditional family. What's proposed here is a residence for, I would respectfully submit, a traditional family. I would offer the testimony ultimately of Dr. Evan Wright, the applicant, who's the contract purchaser of this property, the testimony of his father, Eugene Wright, who was an architect, a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey that's designed this plan. He's also a professional planner, as well as our engineer and planner, to testify as to the appropriateness of this. And I should indicate that the plan was designed, the application was made, there were questions raised about this idea of single family residence. I proffered the idea of putting a deed restriction in so it would always be just a single family residence. The application was then deemed complete. That was done back in February, that the application was deemed complete, and the only variances that were called out at that time were for the width of the driveway and the bringing up of the grade of the property. There was no indication that this was not a permitted use in the zone. A day and a half ago, we did receive the board's engineer's report that questioned that, and then the revision from the zoning officer indicating that it may not be a permitted use. I would respectfully like to go forward with some testimony from the witnesses here. I think the C part of this application is rather simple. There's a hardship. There's a hole in this ground. It needs to be filled. That's the only way anything will ever be developed on this property. It's 3/4 of an acre. It should be developed in a fashion appropriate with the rest of the neighborhood as a single family residence. But I have the testimony of Dr. Evan Wright and his dad, the architect on this, that will indicate that they do comply with the ordinance. Respectfully, we would submit. And a D variance is not necessary. A D variance would, of course, and the board is obviously well aware, it would need a 2/3 majority. We'd have to renotice. We did not notice for a D. I don't think we can piggyback on the all-inclusive provision, the any other variances that would be required from the board. I think we would definitely have to renotice. But I think that our notice providing for any other variances or waivers would include an application pursuant to subsection A of 4055D-70, the appeal of the zoning officer. And essentially, that's probably what we're asking at this point. Zoning officer's last report dated yesterday indicated it's not a permitted use. It looks like a two-family. I would submit that through our testimony, we could appeal that to the board if the board feels that that is not correct. It is a single family, could hear the balance of the C variance testimony and rule on the matter.
May I clarify just one thing, Mr.
Sure.
Higgins? I am fully aware of that definition of family. In fact, I read it during our break just to refresh my memory. But the issue is not whether a single family is going to occupy the structure. The issue is whether it's arranged as two separate dwelling units as defined in the ordinance, and the ordinance prohibits two dwelling units on a single lot. And again, I think this is a fabulous application. It's just, I don't think it fits the letter of the ordinance at this point in time.
We agree with you. We do think it's a good application. That's part of the reason why I think I have Eugene Wright, our architect, to testify, and probably also our engineer, that there are no firewall separations in this proposal. There are no independent utilities. It is single utility to this property. So with all the electricity, all the gas is going to go through one. We are advised by the zoning officer 2 kitchens are permitted, one smaller than the other, but it's not creating that defined separate space that is what we would normally define as a separate living space. It has commonality, and if the concern, and I've talked to our architect, if the concern was there's a door, there is no exterior door to the portion that Eugene would live in, and that's the idea. Doc wants his parents to come live with him in this property, and they'd have their own section of the house. But if the concern is there's an interior garage door that somehow creates an independent access to the one wing of the property, that can be eliminated. Gene and Kathy can walk through their son's property, their son's portion of the property, and see the grandchildren on their way back to their bedroom or something. So that's not an insurmountable thing. That's a minor fix, I think, to maintain this idea that it's a single family residence, because we respectfully believe it is.
And just so the record's clear too, I know what the zoning officer's report says. In my estimation, this really isn't a 2-family. It's more basically a mother-daughter, for lack of a better term, or a parent-child type situation. But when I look at the ordinance, I just don't think it fits the letter of the ordinance at this point in time. And that may change in the future.
Can I ask a question? If there weren't 2 separate entrances, would this all be mitigated?
Well, if I can address that for a second, I don't believe there are 2 separate. There are 2 doors in the garage. Once you're in, it's a 2-car garage. There are 2 interior garage doors into the residence section, but one can be eliminated. If that's the concern, if that makes a difference as to the interpretation of single family or 2-family, that Gene's the architect. He's here to testify, and I think he could indicate. I think that was more for bringing in his groceries from the car.
I don't understand if it's that simple, and we just take one door out, and you make one door in. Mr. Higgins, you have a problem with that?
No, I think that would solve the issue legally. Yeah. The real question is whether that could be done, whether the fire safety rules, I mean, the architect would have to testify that would be legal under the BOA.
I'm telling you, I think that's like the best thing in the universe for everybody. You make one door, it's a mother-daughter house, and then we don't have 2 dwellings. And then what's the other variance? And Mr. Hensel, you can.
Sure. The other
you can
variance
have
is
all your professionals if you want, but I think that's the easy way.
Yeah, and I'm honestly, I think the reason that other door was in there is because the application was presented, it was deemed to be single family. But if that's the hangup, Gene's in my office across the table from me. He'll testify to it in a minute that door can be eliminated. There are no exterior doors to the wing, the Gene's wing of this house, if you will. It all filters through the main part of the house, except for that garage door, and that interior garage door can be taken out.
Okay, so okay, listen again. I'm only the lay guy. That's the chair. If you want to have more testimony, it's fine. So but in my opinion, take the door out, and it makes life real simple, and we all shake hands and go away.
I defer to Mr. Steinberg. Mind if we proceed in that fashion and have the testimony briefly on the
no, Jim, without that door, it's a single family, right?
Yeah, I would say so, because you can't prohibit multiple kitchens or multiple bathrooms in a residence.
No, there wouldn't be, so that in the event that this house was sold down the road, there was no way to get into the one section without going through the house.
That's correct.
So should that be a deed restriction that there can't ever be a second door?
Absolutely, we can certainly put that in.
He'll restrict anything you want.
Yeah. I think you would have to restrict that and have restrict having any other access from outside into that one unit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, which I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, because I said before, I really wouldn't like to see a deed restriction on a permitted use, but in this case, I
But
think.
we've done it before,
Yeah,
even on
okay.
permitted uses, to make sure that in future, someone else won't make an interior fix that would violate something, and we're putting my notice.
And there's no question about this. There's no nefarious purpose here that Gene and his son Evan want to create this as their structure. It isn't anything that they're looking down the road. Dr. Wright, excuse me, is going to testify that he intends to be here for the rest of his life, I think, in this house. And ultimately, maybe he moves into it when his kids take over the house. But it is a well-designed house, respectfully. And if we can proceed that way, Mr. Steinberg,
I think we should.
And I want to make something clear. I never thought that there was anything nefarious going on here.
No.
I just thought that, let's make it simple for everybody.
I agree 100%, Mr. Chairman. May I call Mr. Walter Hopkins to testify at this point then?
I guess so. Mr. Hopkins. Please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name and relationship to this case.
Sure. Walter Hopkin, Hopkin. I'm the project engineer. Our firm prepared the plans and the survey for the property.
And you are a licensed engineer in New Jersey?
Yeah, I can give you my qualifications very briefly. I'm a
Please.
licensed professional engineer in the states of New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and Maryland.
Mr. Chairman, he's been around forever. He's been
All
here
right,
many
let's go.
times. Come on.
I think he's been before the board. I'm getting a little slap happy now.
He's actually got his office in town now. That's how much he loves us.
Sorry.
Yeah, very close to town hall.
All right, Mr. Hopkins.
I would appreciate him being recognized both as a planner and an engineer as well. He is a professional planner, sir.
And I might be pushing it.
Either that or Gene Wright's.
I knew I couldn't get away just scot-free with you, Mr. Fitzgerald. Thank you.
All right, let's move forward, please.
Okay.
Very briefly, because I know we're late on time here.
Go ahead. Tell us
Block
what the project is.
39.04, lot 7.02, also known as 89 Cold Indian Springs Road. The board may not recall or doesn't recall because it was done at the planning board in 2018. There was a minor subdivision creating this lot off of a larger lot, also at that intersection between Cold Indian Springs and Bound Road. There's approximately 15 feet of topography from the high part of the site down towards Cold Indian Springs Road. That's the way that the stormwater currently flows. What's proposed and what you see before you tonight is compliant in all manners with regard to bulk standards. As Mr. Hensel indicated, there was a nonconformity with the front walk, and we remedied that. So what we're left with is your ordinance, which does not allow for a change in grade of greater than 2 feet, as well as the width of the driveway. As you'll hear from Mr. Wright, that this house has been designed to specifically fit both the shape, size, and topography of this property. The stormwater has been designed to retain and reduce the 100-year storm. I think, much to my dismay, we were able to satisfy most of Mr. Fitzgerald's stormwater comments. I'm sure there's a couple of cleanup ones, but we have provided stormwater management for this, which was a condition of the minor subdivision previously. There are sidewalks proposed as part of this as well to complete the sidewalk circulation. There is also a future pool that's shown on the property for future. There's a turnaround that we are showing for the driveway. I don't know if the board at this hour cares for me to share a screen, or I can just describe it. But there's a screen.
Picture's easier.
Okay.
Amy? Amy?
Yes.
Can you share the screen for Mr.
Yeah.
Hopkins?
Yes.
There's comments on that driveway by our planner.
Yes, and I can, we will, I believe we still do need a variance. We do need relief. However, we would modify it to comply with both Mr. Higgins and Mr. Fitzgerald's comments by narrowing it a bit.
Okay.
So because,
Mr. Hopkins, can we address that just briefly? The purpose of that widening of the driveway at that point is for turning around vehicles, is that right? You don't want them pulling out directly on Cold Indian Spring?
Correct. Because of the unique size, shape, and topography of this property, we weren't able to provide a traditional side entry garage. So it is a very unique front entry garage. And this allows the residents to back out and then enter onto Cold Indian Springs in a safe manner with the car being forward.
Okay. And actually, the front of the house, it faces on Bone, is that right?
That's correct.
For purposes of setbacks, because you've got a rear setback and a side yard setback and two fronts.
Correct.
Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted, but I wanted to address that while the picture was on the screen.
No, but that's really the essence of the application. We believe we've done a good job of trying to mitigate the drainage. We have an underground system in the yard along Cold Indian Springs Lane. We would modify the driveway to narrow it as suggested in Mr. Fitzgerald and Mr. Higgins' letters.
Well, they say that the driveway be no more than 20 feet wide. The area shows the turnaround be reduced to 9 feet wide. Can we do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Good. And so the front of the, I have a question. The front of this house is on Bound Road?
It faces Bound, yes.
Okay, so that's the front. The side where the driveway is on Cold Indian Springs.
Correct.
So
that's also a front yard, though. That's also a front yard.
Right, it's a front yard too.
But-
Yeah, I get that. I get that. So, okay. So for the future pool, that pool is far enough that we don't have to worry about front yards and come back here again?
Future pool's in the rear yard.
Yeah,
Has
it's
to
in
be
the
in the
rear
rear
yard.
yard if
Mr.
it's
Chairman,
on
we're
Cold Indian
facing
Springs.
Bound. This is considered a rear yard because
Oh, okay.
that's
All right.
why we did it. It's truly designed specifically for this property.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Hopkins, while we're discussing that narrowing of the driveway, does that affect RSIS? Or are you still able to provide sufficient off-street parking for 5 bedrooms, which is, I think, the proposed footprint?
Yes, it still complies with RSIS. We have a minimum of 3 parking spaces.
Okay.
It's a two car interior garage, and we would have at least 1 space outside.
Okay. All right. If you can, I think you've described it. Can you tell us the application is for C1 variance because of hardship. What do you find the hardship to be if you find it? And you might as well comment on the negative criteria for the concerning whether it deleteriously affects the zone plan and zone scheme of the township.
So it's my opinion as a I have to put my other hat on. Hopefully Mr. Fitzgerald doesn't object to this hat, or Mr. Higgins.
No, he didn't object. They didn't object.
So this is clearly a classic C1 hardship variance because of the unique, all 3, size, shape, and topography of the property. In order to flatten the area out for the home, we have to adjust the grade more than your ordinance permits of 2 feet. And also because of the way that the driveway has to be situated, we have to seek a variance from your driveway width. So the hardship is clearly to the size, shape, and topography of the property. I think it does have positive criterion that advances at least one of the basic purposes of municipal land use law, which is to provide adequate light, air, and open space. Even with this property as it is challenged, we do meet your bulk standards, and we are under on both lot and building coverage. Another benefit is that we'll have stormwater management proposed for this site as well. And it also allows the development of this property without extension of any other infrastructure. Curb, sidewalk, curb is already there. The roads are already there. Water and sewer are already there. As far as the negative criteria, because the variances that we're seeking, in my opinion, will be imperceptible from anybody driving by. So in this specific case, on this specific property, I do not feel there's any negative impact on the town or the community. It's my professional opinion as a planner that the variances can be granted because the benefits outweigh the detriments, and it would be a hardship to strictly adhere to your ordinance. I also believe as a professional planner that these can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good. It will not substantially impair the intent or the purpose of the zone plan or your zoning ordinance.
Let me end on one note in case there's any environmentalists. We have a lot of trees along Cold Indian Springs Road, and the location of the driveway was with the idea of maintaining those trees. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes.
All right. And we're trying to maintain as many trees on the property as we can, I take it. Is that fair?
Yes, we've left a significant buffer along both Bound and Cold Indian Spring Road.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have with this witness.
Thank you. Do you have another witness?
Yes.
Can I ask a question first? Okay.
Sure, Mr. Higgins.
The board's charge is to vote on the variances. We're not approving a site plan. And the issue of whether or not this is a single-family dwelling unit was resolved earlier. Does the board want to hear testimony about the architecture of the building, since it really doesn't, I don't think it relates?
I think we need to see the layout so the board understands what they're getting.
Okay, okay.
But we don't care about the rest of this.
Okay.
And how we're going to close up the access to the little apartment, for better words.
Yeah.
How is that going to be through the house, and how we're going to eliminate it through the garage?
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I think that's important. And then we will concede that it's a single family, and then
Well, just one thing. There's only going to be one entrance. Whether we take the garage thing, we take the garage out, okay? But there's still, as long as it stays one entrance, it's
from
fine.
the garage into the house.
In my opinion.
Well, there's going to be. That's why I want to see the layout of the first floor. Only because there's going to be, obviously, there's now two entrances from inside the garage. There's now then only going to be one entrance. Where does that go?
Yeah, yeah.
We can have Mr. Wright identified. There are two doors into the main part of the house that we will show.
Right.
Why don't I have Gene testify for just a minute or two to explain the footprint of it so everyone can see, and he can also address this idea of closing off that interior garage. So it's always through Evan's portion of the residence.
That's fine.
Okay.
Mr. Wright, please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, I do.
Please state your name, address, and your association with this case.
My name is Eugene D. Wright Jr. That's spelled W-R-I-G-H-T. My office is the Letterer and One Partnership, 16 Madison Avenue, Suite 1D, Township River, New Jersey.
Okay, Mr. Wright, you're a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey. Could you give the board just briefly your background, your credentials?
Yes, I have a degree in architecture from Virginia Tech. I've been a licensed architect for 42 years. I've been a professional planner for 41 years. I'm a member of the American Institute of Architects.
We'll accept it. We'll accept your credentials.
I was going to be one of the chairman of the Ocean County Construction Board.
Okay.
Gene, you designed this property, obviously, in consultation with the zoning officer. And can you tell the board a little bit about why you designed it this way, why the house was prepared?
First of all, the property is very unique. It's located along the east to west axis. The grading and the requirements of maintaining a conservation tree line was important to me as an architect. We had forested areas along the east side and also along the west side. There is a gap in this conservation tree line of about 30 feet wide. That was the impetus to put the garage in the middle. I wasn't disturbing the trees. I wanted to maintain as much of the site as I possibly could. It also enabled us to have a little bit of privacy on the side of the lane. Essentially, we would become babysitters for my son. There's an issue about two garage doors, one on the east side, which is the largest section, and one.
By the way, it's very difficult to understand this for some reason. I don't know what's going on with this computer. But can we share the screen and show us the layout of the garage so we know what we're doing?
I think if you're in the same room as each other, you need to mute your microphones while one person.
Okay, somebody else is going to mute theirs.
I can do it.
Give me a phone. Amy?
Did you get it?
Let's give it a shot.
Let's give it a shot.
Okay, Amy, please mute everyone except for Mr. Wright and Mr. Hensel. Thank you.
I'm bring this up. Okay, there you go. Here we go. All right, so shall I continue? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Do you see the exhibit? Yeah. Okay.
So this section here is facing out towards the east. This is Cold Springs Road along this location. The two-car garage is situated in the middle. And if you drive straight down to Cold Indian Springs, we have about a 30-foot gap in the conservation tree line. That's why the garage was aligned that way. The front of the house is off of Bone Road, and this is the main, or I would say the official entrance going this way. And there's a little side entrance with a mudroom. So when you park your car, you can go in the back way to the mudroom and take care of your business. There are two doors, one here on the east portion of the building and one on the west portion of the building. Excuse me. This is east, that's west. I'd be very happy to eliminate this door. So basically all traffic comes through this portion. We circulate along the hallway back into this living space. There's also a loft on the second floor, which is totally contiguous with the second floor. So we really are one common space throughout the entire building. And we have no issues removing that garage door on the right-hand side.
Okay, Gene, there was a discussion briefly about the fire regulations. You indicated, I think there is no ability to separate these spaces.
Well, first of all, it's a single family residence, in my opinion. There's not separate ownership. There is total commonality between the two spaces. We do not have any separate entrance from the exterior whatsoever. All the utilities will be one single utility for electric, gas, water, sewer.
In Evan's name, I take it.
That would be correct. Yeah, we certainly want to do it that way. And we're just getting older. My wife's an RN and she's retired, and we're looking forward to taking care of our grandsons and seeing my son grow in his business. And we love this location. It's a prominent location. It's on a corner with a bit of a acute angle to it. You can see the location from multiple directions. I really want to design a quality house that we'll be proud of and that the neighborhood would also be enhanced by it. I want to do the right thing.
Okay, and Gene, you currently live in Orchid River. The idea is when the cafe are going to sell your house and move in with Evan once the structure is complete.
That is correct. And just as a side note, I have a daughter who's a lawyer up in Long Island, and this gets me 45 minutes closer to her family and be with my son. It's a dream for us, to tell you the truth.
I think that's all I have of the architect at this time. Can you bring
You had indicated, I think it was backwards. You were going to eliminate the door from the garage, the door from the garage into the eastern portion of the house, right?
Yes, right here. Yep.
I know, but isn't that the eastern side?
Yeah, correct. I misspoke.
So it'd be the eastern side of the garage.
That would be closed off.
And you're going to close that off so that at that juncture, and I'm now going, Mr. Higgins, I see this is just a big one family house. Mr. Higgins?
That takes care of the language in the ordinance regarding the arrangement of the two units. It's now one unit. It's not two.
Yeah, and I believe he said that the second floor is a loft that it's over both areas it's not closed off.
Well, as I read the architectural plans, the western side is a 2-story section and the eastern side is 1 story. So that confused me a little bit.
Where's the loft?
Let me pull it up. Oh, 1 second. Let's look at it. Break your attachments. No attachments. Right there. Okay. If you look at the second floor, you can see to the west, it's a full 2-story section, and then above the garage there is a loft with a little porch dormer facing out towards Cold Indian Springs, and then there is a door with a stair going down to our 1-story section.
Okay, yeah. Now I see the connection. Absolutely, yeah.
So that's all connected on the second floor.
Yes.
We'll connect on the second floor.
All right, so that even doubles it. Fine.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay. That's all I have of the architect. Would the board like to hear just a moment from Dr. Wright that he consents to the deed restriction in the property and his intention to let his dad live with him, basically?
Sure.
Can we unmute Mr. Wright?
You waited this long.
You guys hear me?
We can. You can take down the plan if you'd like.
1 minute. Here we go.
There we go.
We know who knows technology in that house.
Apologies, sorry.
All right, can I respectfully ask that Dr. Wright be sworn?
Dr. Wright, please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir.
Please state, ooh, call me sir. Please state your name and address with relation to the case.
Yes, sir. My name's Evan M. Wright, DO. I'm a family medicine physician. I live in Oceanport, New Jersey. I am the person purchasing the land.
Yeah, you're the contract purchaser of the property, is that correct?
That sounds much better.
Okay. And Evan, your background is you were a doctor, you were a flight surgeon in the Navy for several years, and you've honorably discharged from the Navy. Now you're residing in Monmouth County and wish to continue there, is that correct?
Correct. I have a practice in Monmouth County, as well as in Ocean County, and I'm looking to just stay in Monmouth County. Yes.
And you have hospital privileges at what hospitals?
Central State.
Central State. Okay. Now, you've heard us testify and speak to the idea of a deed restriction on the property. You, as the contract purchaser, are in favor of doing that. You will, in fact, take the property with that restriction.
Yes, correct. I mean, I like I said, I plan on dying in the living room and getting buried in the backyard.
But no, you're not doing that.
I don't care. It's gonna be the rest of my life, so I understand.
You understand. There'll be a deed restriction. It can never be used as anything but a single-family residence in any shape, manner, or form.
Correct.
Even if your father and mother have to move out or something.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right. That's all I have. I don't know if you needed anything else, Mr. Chairman, from Mr.
No, I don't need anything else.
Okay.
I have a question. though. I think the deed restriction should not be that it can't be used other than a single family, because this is a single family residential zone and it has to be used as a single family. I think the deed restrictions have to be that there's only one access into the structure from the garage, and that there be no access into the one-story portion of the building from the outside, no separate access into that from the outside. And that will ensure that it's maintained as the applicant is representing it.
Right, but Jim, on our end, we've gone through hell and high water here to get to this point.
Yeah.
I believe that the easement would clear things up for everyone moving in the future. There'll be a time when Dr. Wright will no longer be here, and
that's why I'm saying that, because I don't think you can enforce a deed restriction that says it's going to be a single family structure unless somebody goes inside the building and sees how it's being lived in.
Yeah, I take Jim's point. I will work out the deed restriction with Mr. Hetzel.
That was going to be my suggestion. I'll submit if the board's in favor of the application, I'll submit the deed for during resolution compliance to the board's attorney for.
I think we can figure that out. I know what Jim is saying. That I can restrict something that's all you can do.
Yeah.
But I think we need the other language. I agree with Jim. We'll work it out.
Okay, that makes sense to me.
And that's our application, sir.
Are there any questions from the board members?
Does Bill have any comments on the changing grade?
Bill?
Bill is muted.
Bill?
Yeah, I had to unmute. Hang on. No, I said the change of grade was fine as long as we get a stormwater plan that conforms, which I think it does. So I have no problem with it. I just, I didn't know where we were. There's a few little minor things that we would address, and I wasn't sure where we were going. So I didn't waste a lot of time.
Okay.
Listing all that stuff.
We'll make the final plan subject to your approval when they receive it.
Yeah, because I think that if we do it the right way and the way the town engineer wants me to do it going forward, when you approve these kind of things, I just texted the client's, the applicant's engineer, said get the residential plot plan checklist. We'll just set it up so it goes right from here to building permit.
Yeah, I will. We'll make that as a condition because we're happy with what we're doing. So it's
Thank you, Bill.
Chairman, can I just ask one question of Bill? In a situation like this, do we want the water to run to the street, or do we want it to run to the tree area
He-
that's over
he-
there?
well, what he's got is an infiltration bed. He's going to catch, there's nowhere to drain to. So he's going to catch it all and infiltrate it. This doesn't come under stormwater management standards for major development. Okay, so he's got more freedom than you have under major development, although the new regulations now allow you to infiltrate more than they did if you can demonstrate that a site has no alternative. But this site doesn't have an alternative. It's not major development, and he's going to catch all the water from the roof and infiltrate it into the ground, which is a good thing. So anything that gets to the street, John, is really going to be minimal.
Right, okay.
Any other questions from the board? Any other questions from the, are there any questions from the public?
Question from the public. I'm Pavel Zinghel. It's 85 Cold Indian Springs Road.
Well,
It's
please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name and address in relation to this case.
My name is Pavel Zinghel. The address is 85 Cold Indian Springs Road,
Yes,
Ocean Township, New Jersey.
and your question, sir.
My question is, it was mentioned previously that they have done the analysis and there will be a reduction in stormwater runoff for the recurrence of a 2-year through 100-year interval. How this reduction, how this attenuation is being achieved? What DMP is being used for the site?
Well, what I read was that the infiltration rate is excessive on this site. The soils are really very permeable. The state law requires they cut it in half. The rate that they used in their report, I think, if I remember, it was about 1/6 of what was actually measured in the field. So the water will be collected, put into a subsurface bed that you won't see. It'll be under the lawn, and it'll infiltrate into the ground.
Okay, thank you. How many points of analysis for the stormwater does this particular site has?
How many who?
Points of analysis, meaning how many discharge points does the site has? Does it
Well,
drain?
the site only really has one. I mean, it'd be the southeast corner of the site is the most downhill portion of the site.
That is correct. Yeah.
That's where the water is. So some of the water is going to run off the driveway. That will intercept the water coming from the northwest corner of the site across the site. Anything that doesn't get caught and put off the roof, the entire roof is going to go into the stormwater bed. So the only thing that's going to, I'm sorry.
There will be no increase in stormwater runoff that is going to be directed in the easterly.
Correct.
On the easterly side, right? Okay.
Any other questions from the public?
I do.
Please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please state your name and address in relation to this case.
Sure. My name is Cindy Burnham. I live at 71 Wallace Street in Red Bank, and I am speaking tonight on the behalf of the owner, my daughter, at 504 Brown Road.
We'll give you a limited access. You can't speak for her. Okay.
She just had a baby. I just had a baby 4 days ago.
I'm sorry. This is a situation where unless you're represented by an attorney, you cannot be her attorney.
I'm not. I'm just a person asking questions then.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Ask questions.
All right. Why the raise in grade?
Walter, you want to answer that?
I think it's a cut and fill. Okay, the site slopes from if you're standing on the street looking at it, the site slopes from upper left to lower right. It's really it's a fairly constantly slanted tabletop, if you will. So in order to get a flat area for a house or any other improvement, that type of lot is pretty much developed exactly as shown on this plan, where you bring the hill down fast at the top, you flatten it in the middle, and you bring it down again at the other, at the low end. And so you end up with some cuts and some fills, Okay, just to make a flat area in the middle for your improvements so that it's livable and functional. It's not.
Well,
uncommon.
okay, I just want to make a few statements that,
You
this
can't
is
make,
like-
this is questions only.
Okay, you're right. Statements at the end, correct?
No, but for yourself, you can make it, but you can't make them for your daughter.
Okay, I'm making them for myself. They're my own thoughts here.
You live in-
Where will the AC units be? What side of the house?
I can't answer that off the top. I don't have it in front of me, but maybe they can.
Walter, can you pull it up?
And also I see that there's a generator there. How close to the property line? I think that looks like it's on the west side of the house.
Mr. Chairman, can we have Walter address those items around?
Yes. Walter, do you want to bring up a plan?
Yes, please.
Amy?
Yes.
Please share the screen with
Please
Mr.
share the
Hopkins.
screen with Mr. Hopkins.
I think you still have the capability to share your screen.
Thank you. So the future generator, if the board can see my hand, my virtual hand here,
Yes.
is in this area, which is dimensioned as 24.9 feet from the property line. Actually, it's 20, I think 24.9 is to the exterior, so it's 25. And then
It's
the two air
25.
conditioning, two air conditioning units are adjacent to that.
Okay. All right.
Ms. Burnham, I'm sorry if I missed it, just so I know, where is your daughter's property? What's her address?
We are right, 504 Bound Road. So we are what, west?
Okay,
We're on
so
the
you're-
west side. We
So
north?
there's another property between you and this property, correct?
No, there is not.
No,
We were
You are
directly alongside, I think it's our south side,
Where the porch is facing.
where the porch is facing.
Okay,
Okay, that whole side, that's all of us. And it just, so you're telling me that two kitchens.
Question, Miss-
This is my question. This is my question. Are you telling me that you can legitimately sit here and tell me that there are not two living spaces here when this gentleman is already the architect, the father, is talking about living here? Can you, do you believe that?
yeah, if you're directing that to me, yes, it's my
I'm direct-
professional opinion that it does meet the definition of a single family home. It clearly does. I don't think there's any disputing that.
So two kitchens, every house has two kitchens and two different living spaces. Because that's what this house has, correct?
The question has been asked and answered. Move on to the next question, please.
Okay. Somebody laughing? The runoff analysis. Did the applicant perform drainage studies for the raising of the grade?
We as we've indicated several times already this evening, we did perform a drainage analysis. There is a recharge system, and
Where is the recharge system?
it's here along Bound Road, Cove
Okay.
Indian.
Uh-huh.
The roof leaders will be directed to that. I mean, this is all downhill of you. You're at the top of the hill.
Yeah, but they're gonna build it up 4 feet.
Only in this area, only in this area. The
Only
slope
in
will
that-
continue, the slope will continue in the same direction. Out
Mhm.
towards Holding. We're not redirecting any water towards your property.
And what about all the mature shrubs that are back there?
There'll
Are they
be-
gonna,
There will be some
Huh?
clearing along your property line. We're maintaining the shrubs and the trees along Bound Road. We're clearing some for the sidewalk. We're keeping a significant amount of
well,
buffer.
we're more concerned with, alongside our property line
Then I think
towards
I've
the
answered
rear.
that. I think.
Pardon me?
I've answered that.
So you're gonna clear it. Just refresh my memory. It's
Uh,
late, we're tired. And I'm,
Yes, I do know it's late and I
so
understand.
just, again, you're gonna
If you
clear
let me
it or you're
finish-
not?
If you let me answer your question, I will gladly answer it, but if you interrupt me, it's going to make it difficult.
Please,
We are clearing
don't
this. area.
patronize me. Stop. Just answer the question. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Steinberg, I'll take direction from you, please.
Well, just answer the question.
Okay. So this is the area that's being cleared along your property line.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Welcome. Any other questions from the public? Motion to close the public hearing.
Worrell offers to close the public hearing.
Need a second?
Malta, second.
Amy, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Mr. Worrell,
Yes.
Ms. Spiel,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Chairman Shepherd.
Yes. So, action on this case, Mark, how do we do this?
Okay, the action on this case is that they're only requesting 2 variances. They have, and as a condition of those variances, of course, they're going to remove the door from the garage into the eastern portion of the house.
Correct.
So that we can see it as a single family, and do a deed restriction that there cannot be other access to that portion of the house. But the only 2 variances they're asking for is the width of the driveway and the, and which they're going to amend to Bill's and Jim's requirement, and to the greater than 2 feet of fill, or change of grade greater than 2 feet. That's the only 2 variances.
And just so you're aware, Mark, for comparison purposes, they could do a circular driveway and not have the need for the variance. However, that just results in more pavement. So this is a better solution.
I understand.
You need action on this?
I offer for a positive resolution to grant a deed restricted application and to meet the 2 variances that was discussed by Mr. Steinberg.
Malta, second.
Amy, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Mr. Worrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Yes.
Chairman Shepherd.
Yes. Mr. Hensel, Dr. Wright, Mr. Wright, thank you for waiting all night.
Mr. Chairman, my thanks very much to you and the board. I know you went a little bit beyond the time, but it's very much appreciated. Glad to get this done. Thank you, sir.
Board members, I thank you. Mr. Kirk, you're sticking around with,
Mr. Ashkenazi.
okay.
I would like to thank the chair and the board and everyone for staying as late as you have. It really does assist our office in helping the residents of Ocean Township. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and Ron, you and I and Jim will get together with what we're going to do with these future.
It sounds like a hoot.
It sounds like a great idea because there's some age-restricted communities that can really use your help.
Well, I think that they have to have their own plan.
They do, but somebody has to offer something up, or at least a suggestion.
Why did I go off screen? All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Night, everybody.
Right.